Not from my end.
Maybe it's okay like this.
All right.
You just have to walk around. So,
Sounds good to
everything
me.
ready?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I guess I don't have anything to do. I guess we'll just go live then. All right. Well, thanks for coming anyway.
No problem. Is it live yet?
It's going live.
Okay.
Should be live.
I'm
Hello.
getting a little bit of an echo, but it's really quiet, so it should be fine.
Oh, okay. Well, I can change it if I have to.
Okay.
Um. Yeah. Well, welcome to. This is my first live broadcast since Google Hangouts had the problem of sniping. So I'd like to welcome Snake was right,
That's right.
and is it okay if you explain a little bit about yourself or anything you want to say?
Sure. I got into the debating creationist game about 6 months ago, but I've been interested in it for a long time, and I'm working on a degree in molecular biology. So I feel like I could have some pretty interesting, detailed conversations about this topic. Um, and I am an atheist. It doesn't really affect the evolution argument at all, but I do like to talk theism as well, and just general philosophy. I debate that too. So um, that's about it, I guess.
Yeah, well, that sounds good. I went ahead and I'm using the earphones now.
Okay. Yeah, it sounds better.
So, so then, let's see. How do we want to approach this? You believe in basically chemicals to biology to living organisms, or
Pretty much, but that would be abiogenesis and evolution, which are separate topics. Because you can
okay,
just, for the purposes of evolution, I usually just assume that God created the first life, so we can just get that out of the way. Because the way that organisms change and evolved isn't affected by where their origin comes from.
right? I understand. Um, so what kind of life form would that have been?
Sorry?
What would be the
Would it
first
have
life
been?
form?
Okay, so the Luca, I was watching a little bit of your video on this earlier. The last universal common ancestor, and that's just a predicted organism because of the oldest organisms that we can find are all single celled. So, and they all have these unique traits that are built on top of what would be a simple cell. And so it's reasonable to assume that given evolution occurs, that all the three basic types of cells came from a population of simpler cells. And based on what we know about bacteria, that population may not have been a single species because different species of bacteria can actually just share DNA with each other, just horizontally. They don't have to reproduce to give each other different genes and stuff. So the Luca isn't a particular species or organism. It's more of just a population of cells that are thought to be able to reproduce. And from that, you can build complexity and get the bacteria, the archaea, and the eukaryotes, basically.
Okay, so you think that the complexity was built. You didn't start out with a a created living organism that has like all the information of all the animals, right?
Well, if you assume that God created the Luca, then it doesn't matter. Like, we can
Well,
assume that. Just assume God created the Luca, and
right.
and
But
evolution can take place from there.
yeah, well, we could understand better if everything. I mean, if there was an original life form that had all the information of all the animals, we could see how it could diversify. But
Uh,
you
it
think that
wouldn't
it?
have all the information of all the animals because a lot of that information is gained through mutation.
Okay, so you believe that it was bottom up instead of top down.
Uh, Essentially, yeah.
The genome, the construction of the genome, the information.
Yeah. I
So
mean,
that would kind of mean there would be a bottleneck of information. You wouldn't. It'd be kind of hard to get the information that's not there. Then.
no, because mutation changes what's there, so every time you have different information. And uh, a lot of the times it actually expands the amount of information that's there by duplication,
Yeah.
which is observed.
Yeah. Well, that's observed quite often, a duplication of information, but it's usually copies of the same information. It doesn't really change. I mean, it's a copy.
That's how it starts, and then it changes, it mutates, and then it's different.
Because when you compare people, you compare the numbers of copies that they have of different information.
And some, like dominant genes or recessive genes, require two copies of the same gene to even function. So sometimes, you wouldn't have a function to a gene if you only have one copy, and then it duplicates, or you get a second one from a parent, and then all of a sudden it has a function.
Okay, that sounds interesting.
That's basically
Um,
how
yeah,
recessive genes work.
like maybe I should do a full disclosure. I'm kind of a layperson. I'm from the Amazon jungle myself. I didn't introduce myself or explain myself, but
Okay.
I'm from the Amazon jungle, and
Wow.
I was there from 3 years old the first time I went, and it was back and forth between the United States and South America, Brazil. And the last time I was there was 17, living there. And of course, I've been there since then, but just to visit.
Oh, that sounds pretty interesting.
So I was basically raised in the Amazon jungle, more or less, and in the city. But I really don't have. I have a little bit of Bible education, but that's about it.
That
So
was
I
in
don't.
was that in Brazil?
No, the Bible education was here after I left Brazil. It was when I got older.
Oh, okay.
It was Moody Bible, if anybody knows what Moody Bible Institute is,
I have not heard of it.
in Chicago.
Okay.
So, have you heard of Moody?
I don't think so.
Oh, okay. He was a he was a pretty important person, influential person. He believed in that God so loved the world. His message was God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that
Hmm.
whoever believes in him should not perish. But his message was love, that God loves you.
So I'm assuming that your basis for uh, your doubt of evolution would be biblical, right?
Um, yes and no. Well, because of creation, and we got the creation account, but the problems with evolution is I don't see where the information's coming from, because, like you said, you have duplications, but a duplication is a copy of the information that's already there, and if you're mutating what's already there, you're not really getting new information. You're just changing what's already there,
Well, it is
and
new because it's different.
It is a little bit different, not much different, and
Well, actually, if you the way proteins fold, if you just take out a little bit, it can actually have a completely different function. Like there's a digestive protein that fish have, and they found that there's a mutation that occurred to a duplicate of that gene, and essentially it was just read differently and combined differently, and it has an antifreeze function, so a completely different function. It's not an enzyme anymore, and that's just based on if you take out even, I mean,
that
in
would be
severe
the
cases, you could just take out one segment of the protein and it would fold the exact opposite way that it otherwise would.
and that would be fish in the Arctic. You mean? I mean, or Antarctic?
Yeah,
Okay, I think I heard about that. Um,
but that's exactly how it works. Is you just modify what's already there. There's nothing new that just pops out of nowhere.
yeah, and it's still nothing new, really. I mean, it's it's a kind of adaptation, or by chance, maybe.
But that's why you'll hear a lot about the law of monophyly, and it's usually phrased sort of like an organism will never outgrow its ancestry, and it's I don't know. I kind of have a few problems with just the way that's phrased, but that's kind of what it means. Is it isn't a new thing. It is just a modified version of what it already is. We are modified fish, as weird as that sounds, just as we are modified apes and modified reptiles.
Okay, but I'm still not seeing a mechanism for getting very much information. I'm seeing slight change in what's already there. I'm not seeing any, like if you
Well,
have multiple, let's say you have multiple mutations, they have to be complementary to each other, and of course everything has to go along with those changes. The immune system, everything has to accommodate all those changes and stuff.
yeah, and that's why it's usually slow, gradual change because it's not a bunch of stuff happening all at once. So it has time to coordinate and test all these different ways. What doesn't make sense is the extremely fast evolution off of the arc, which occurs in 3,000 years. That would be almost impossible, if not impossible, to coordinate all those different mutations, all the
Well,
explosion of different species just in 3,000 years.
but we do see variation of the same kind, though. We see a lot of that.
Yeah, but within that time frame, that's a lot of variation with given the sheer diversity of species, because there's only a certain amount you can fit on the ark.
Right. But there is a lot of room on the ark, but it's hard to say just from looking at it which is a kind, which isn't a kind, or which is belongs to which kind. But because we don't have the information, the genome in front of us, we can't look at and compare the genomes
Yeah,
very
so
easily.
what we can do with that is just comparative anatomy, and I'm sure if I showed you fossil whale bones, you could identify it as a whale, and I'm not getting into the more controversial whale evolution that creationists object to, but just like a baleen whale's skeleton. We never saw it alive, but you can tell it looks like baleen whale skeletons today. So it's very reasonable to assume that it's the same kind of creature. But the thing is that we see variation within kinds that can change the shape of bones. So, and change the number of chromosomes in the kind. Every species of fox has a different number of chromosomes. And
Yeah. Well,
so
the
the
number of
nat
chromosomes is not really a problem, but there are different kinds of foxes, so that might be a problem.
so as soon as you like it doesn't seem like it would work as soon as you're saying that there are multiple created kinds of foxes because there's only a certain amount of room on the ark. So are you going to have a slot for each type of fox and each type of wolf and each type of dog and each type of elephant, or are you just going to have
It, yeah, it could have
one
been each.
canine, one elephant, or at least in pairs?
It could have been each major kind. Yeah, it could have been a lion, a tiger, and a leopard, and a whole bunch of different other kinds of cats. It could
Okay,
have
so you don't
been.
think that there was just one cat kind that diversified into all
Yeah,
of
well,
them?
I'm not too sure. I would have to be able to compare the genomes and compare them side by side to see if which one has extraneous information that the other one doesn't have. And but
Well, and they've
it,
done that, and they've compared the fossils, and there are does seem
well,
to come from a single cat, but that also has crossover. It
yeah,
looks
well, I
identical
don't.
to the things that were traced back for the
You
canines too.
can you can call me skeptical, but I don't trust their conclusions very much because they came out with the chimp being 98% human, and it turned out not to be so.
Well, it is depending on how you count it. So if you count every single nucleotide as a difference, then you're going to get a much lower number than if you're counting whole genes as being different. Um, or there was a study that said there's an 80% difference between chimps and humans, and that was saying every time a gene has any nucleotide difference, that it was counted as a difference, despite it being, uh, it would be the same gene, and it would have just a single letter difference between chimps and humans, and that letter difference actually was a silent mutation, so it doesn't actually change the protein. So it's the exact same protein, but it's still counted as a difference. So it matters the way you compile your statistics.
Yeah, but I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the information, you know, vast amounts of information that chimps have that humans don't have, and the vast amounts of information that humans have that chimps don't have.
It's not. I wouldn't characterize it as vast at all, um, and
Because
that's exactly what we'd expect because they've been evolving uh, separate from each other for millions of years.
well, we'll get into the millions of years in a little bit, maybe. But the if you're making a copy, it has to be a copy. It can't be extraneous information. And that's what it seems to be that the chimps have extraneous information, and so do humans from chimps.
And
And it's not just because there is comparing the different. Basically, what they did compare was the comparable information. That's how they got 98% was the comparable information with slight changes, and the slight changes that you were talking about made the 2% difference. From what
so
I understand, that's the way I understood it anyway.
So the other way you can get new genes is from tinkering with the junk DNA, which is just mostly inactive.
Well, that's the thing. It's really not junk. It's it's
Exactly.
got it's got uses, and the chimp has uses that we don't have, and we have uses that the chimp doesn't have. Of course, just by looking at the anatomy, because we have a brain that the chimps don't have, and we have the morphology, the shape of our bodies is everything is not the same. Everything is different about it. If you look at it and compare it,
Only by scale. I mean, they have a slightly larger muzzle, and slightly larger canines. It's
no, all the
just
bones are all every bone is different. Every joint is different. Every hip, every arm, everything is different.
yeah, but not past natural variation. You can get
Well,
you can get longer bones or more curved bones through natural variation.
they're like the
They have
wrist, and
all the same bones as us. They're just slightly different sizes and shapes.
the knuckles have a function that we don't have. Our knuckles don't have, and there's
It's simply a difference of scale, though.
of
Like,
course their foot is different too,
mhm.
and the but anyways, it's the the way you would be able to tell something is the same kind would be that it is like humans, almost 100% identical, except that we have different numbers of the same, different numbers of copies of the same information, which makes us different, and different, things are expressed at one time, and then in your son something else is expressed and other things are expressed. That's what makes us different, but it's really identical information, different numbers of copies of the same information in humans. And when you go to chimps, now you have extraneous information that's not in humans, and the same thing with humans that have information that's not in the chimps, and the same thing with all the other animals that are all unique to what they do. They have specific information to make them to be able to do what they do. So each thing is unique.
Yeah, that's covered by mutation. You can
Um,
get new genes, and we expect that.
not,
So, do you believe that horses
not
and
really.
zebras? Do you believe that horses and zebras were separately on the ark, or are they this? Or are they just horse kind?
No, I think they're the same thing, pretty much.
So a horse has twice the chromosomes as a zebra.
Um, well, maybe that's because of breeding or something. I don't know.
Yeah, so every generation is different, and you can get extraordinarily different chromosome sets, and you can also get a lot of bone changes within the same kind. So, like, where do you think that limit is?
Well, you have each animal has its own nature. It's only it was
But
commanded.
what's the physical limit that a bone can change size or shape
It
according to
was
biology?
commanded. It was commanded or ordered to be either a frog, a cat,
But that's
a,
not
a
biology.
dog. And the thing is that that nature of that animal is going to carry over with them wherever they go or whatever
So
they turn into.
is it a magic spell then?
A magic what?
Spell?
What makes you say that?
You said God spoke a command and then it just happens. So either there's a
No, no. I'm
biological
talking about.
explanation.
Talking about the written instructions that each animal has. Each animal
Oh,
has instructions or orders or commands, if you will, to be a certain thing,
but not
and that's
necessarily because those instructions change and mutate naturally all on their own.
which will basically warp whatever it is. It'll warp it, but it'll still remain what it is. Like a frog will warp if you put a frog in a fast moving stream. It'll warp and lose function of its lungs because it doesn't have to breathe so much because the water's going by putting oxygen into.
Sure, but we see transitional forms warping, showing a warping effect between these different kinds because the transitional forms have anatomical features of supposedly two different kinds. And
well
so it's very easy to see how it warps through the generations. You can
well
warp
you
the bones in a mammal's fingers and make them longer and warp the skin between their fingers and make wings out of them. And that's how bats were born.
yeah you seem to see that, but I don't seem to see it as easily. And I mean, I know what you're saying. I know what you're saying, that
Well,
the
I'm just
skin
trying
spreads and stuff.
to understand why you can't make that bridge because you must think that there is some kind of limit, but
Okay.
where is it in the DNA? Because we know that physical features can change because of DNA changes.
Well, it goes to the bottleneck of information when it when you're diversifying. Somehow you think you get all kinds of information that's not there, and it becomes all different kinds of things.
It's just altering information that's already there.
No, but initially there's a bottleneck every step of the way. In evolution, if you're starting bottom up on information, you have a bottleneck every step of the way. So in other words, you have to have one mutation, another mutation, and another mutation that are all work together to make a new function,
Only in
which is
super fast 3,000 year evolution.
well, yeah, which is tantamount to impossible.
Yeah, that's why
And
I don't believe the flood story.
so what you're saying? No, like I said, variation of kinds. We do see a lot of that.
But you're saying that it's impossible to go that fast.
No, but
Evolution works slowly, so that's not a
I'm
problem. You
saying that
can incorporate one mutation at a time.
I'm saying that the animal will remain what it is
Yeah, that's what monophily is.
as the variations happen. It'll remain or keep its original information.
So
It's just expressed differently. The information is expressed differently, but it's the same. It's the copies of the same information.
like
And you
dinosaurs would be long-necked lizards, big long-necked lizards, big two-legged lizards, and Archaeopteryx would be one of those with feathers, and then birds would be an Archaeopteryx with fused bones and a lesser tail.
yeah, you're making a lot of jumps there, and you're
But
talking about
it's not a jump. It's within what you're saying. It's variation within the kind. They stay what they are. It's just modified.
no, you're talking about
How
infinite,
big of a difference are you willing to accept?
but you're talking about infinite possibilities in limited time and space, and
No,
you want to stretch out that time to make it look like it could happen, but
it's
as you're stretching out the time, you're making it more silly as the more you stretch it the time.
it's limited to what it is. So you can't get feathers on a bat in in like a small amount of time. Maybe over another few million years you could evolve feathers again, but
Okay,
the feathers aren't going to come out of nowhere. But you can stretch out their fingers and make a wing out of that. You're limited but by what's there.
okay. So let's talk about feathers then. How would you go from information to make a scale to from information to make a feather?
So they're made out of the exact same protein, keratin. So they're just secreted differently. A scale is a
Uh,
large flat secretion,
I
and a
would I
hair
would
is a very tiny thin secretion that keeps going.
I would say that it's secreted very differently. It's
Yeah.
like very, very, very differently.
Hmm.
You've seen, you know what a feather looks like up close, right?
Hmm.
It's it's really a phenomenal, architecture, you might say.
Um, but mathematically, it's very simple. It's just branch. It's kind of fractal, and that happens in nature all the
Okay,
time.
but you have to have instructions for that.
Yeah. So
You have to have
if
specific written instructions for to make a feather, and they basically have to be there already.
well, it already has a pore that can secrete keratin. So you just have different mutant pores that print out keratin in different ways. The ones that work stick around, the ones that don't die.
Okay, so you're basically appealing to infinite possibilities in limited time and space again. So we
It's
have
not.
we're
It's limited to a pore that produces keratin.
yeah, but you have to have specific instructions, and we know the instructions
Yeah.
aren't
Well,
contained
we
in
have the
one.
instructions, and we can change those instructions.
It's not just, but the information is not just in one gene because if you can genetically remove the eye from a fruit fly, and within a certain number of generations, a few number of generations, the fly will get its eye back. So there's backup information that it's not just one mutation that's going to affect anything to begin with.
And you can also put eyes on their legs.
So
So changes to the sequence of DNA can actually it's almost like copy pasting it to a different part of the body.
so
So a minor change to the existing instructions can give a different result. It's still going to do something.
well, you said yourself as copy and pasting, but But that's still not changing the information, though. That's what I'm saying.
But that's kind of how it works. Like, I mean, if you've ever worked on like 3D modeling, it's a lot of copying and pasting, but you can make different things out of the same building blocks.
But remember what I said, that when you genetically alter something, it's going to revert back to what it was in a few generations.
How's that? Have the zebras reverted back to horses?
No, what I'm saying, the stasis, it'll revert back to the stasis that it was. So they, because they've altered, they've genetically removed the information for the eye, and within a few generations, the fly got its eye back.
Um, and that doesn't mean it's limited
So
to form.
that means that the genome is a lot more versatile than what we than what mutations can do to it. So it's not like mutations is going to really affect it that much.
There's a lot of creationists who would argue differently, like genetic entropy they would say you're wrong based on that.
Well,
Are you
yeah,
familiar?
genetic entropy is another thing, but what I'm saying is that the
But that's
genome is versatile in reverting to the stasis, reverting to the initial instructions of what it was ordered to be or made to be.
but genetic entropy says that the genome is constantly degrading. So
Right, but that's
that's not
beside
a
the point.
mechanism to always bounce back to where you were based on genetic damage.
That's beside the point.
Well,
That's
no, you're
beside the
saying it
point.
can repair its genome after genetic damage, and genetic entropy is genetic damage.
Well, it can, because I've seen two basically invalid people have a perfect child.
That's recombination.
Right, which
So
is,
that's
but it is
that's
the
how genetic entropy is disproved, because
but it's
you can
but
purge
it
the
is
bad
the human
alleles.
gene, but it is the human genome, though. It's
Yeah.
copies of the same information.
But we already know that within the same kind, the genome can have different chromosomes. It can evolve different chromosome numbers. So the limit
But it
is not as narrow as you
but
seem to claim.
the number of chromosomes doesn't make any difference. What's important is the information, the copying of the information that's there. That's what's important. And if you copy information, it's going to be a copy of the copy of the copy. It's not going to be extraneous information.
It will be when it mutates.
Well, mutations are corrected sometimes, and they're not
So
they're not
what
going to make that much difference.
biomechanical,
Yeah, I
what
mean,
biological
like what I
mechanism?
said, when you're going to have, if you want if you want new information, you're going to have a mutation, one mutation here, another mutation there, and another
No,
mutation, and they all have to be complementary. All the
no,
mutations have to be complementary, which is tantamount to impossible.
no, they don't, because you only have to get one mutation at a time.
Okay, one mutation at a time, and then another one has to be complementary. But you're
Yeah,
talking about,
and if it doesn't work, that animal either dies or it doesn't and it works.
but you're appealing to infinite time and
No,
infinite possibilities with infinite time, and
no, just a few million years.
okay, let's
That's
go
not
to the,
infinite.
well, no, it has to be infinite, because for the kind of information and kind of instruction in the amount of instructions, significant sequencing, which is concatenation, which is programming, you need an infinite amount of time and infinite, because if you're going to make a single protein by chance, of an average size protein, you need 20 billion years to give a single protein by a chance. And how much more a billion
How'd you
digits,
calculate that?
how much more a billion bits of genome? How much more a billion bits of genome, or 2 billion bits of genome? How many, you're appealing to infinite possibilities in a limited amount of time and space, and no amount of time appealing to time is not going to help, because it's going to you're going to The thing's going to fall apart before it ever puts itself into directed working over. It's just going to fall apart. I mean, you know what I'm saying?
No, because it doesn't take that long.
It does.
It would take like
It'll take
637
20
days to
billion years
produce.
for a single
You can
protein.
you can randomly have monkeys typing on a keyboard, and you can
No,
produce
no,
30,000 words of Hamlet in 2
no,
years.
no,
Yeah, I calculated
no,
it.
no. Because for
Yeah, you
one thing,
can.
monkeys will type on the same keys all the time. For one thing.
Exactly. Yeah.
For another thing, it'll fall apart before it ever puts itself together.
Nope. As long as you have a selection filter, it can build it.
It's not enough time. You
There
have to
is.
have
You can
no,
do 30,000
no
words in 2 years.
for a single protein of 20 possible amino acids, you need 20 billion years for
How'd you calculate that?
four a protein of 400 amino acids.
How'd you calculate that?
You need 20 billion years,
How did you calculate that?
probably more,
How did you calculate that?
because I didn't do the calculation.
Yeah, I
Somebody else
know.
did. And it wasn't 400 amino acids. It was 300 or 200 amino acids in it, and you need like 15 billion years for that.
Yeah, if you start from scratch on every one of them, that's manipulation of statistics again. So
No, it's not
it is.
it's not
It absolutely
manipulated.
is.
It's what it takes to
Yeah,
get
because
the
that's not how it
sequence.
works. We don't start from scratch every time. So whatever calculation that is flat out wrong from the onset. Most, if not, well, actually, all proteins are adapted from another protein, from the LUCA.
It's
Every
still,
single one is a copy or an adaptation of another protein that already existed.
but it's still not going to be enough because you're appealing to.
To observed scientific phenomena.
No, it's not observed for one thing.
It is observed. Mutations are observed, and they're observed to build genes.
No, they're observed to degrade genes.
No, they're observed
But
to do both.
that's another thing. How about that? Let's go to the time thing, the time factor. So you have say the Grand Canyon may be eroded, and how long did the Grand Canyon take to erode? Do you know?
Well, no.
Maybe
I'm not
about
an expert on geology.
6 million years.
I don't know.
Well, how much erosion would take place in 50 million years?
A lot.
Yeah, probably.
We observe water eroding rock in real time.
Probably all of the existing sediment layers that were deposited by the flood on land.
Yeah, if there wasn't such thing as recycling rocks.
No, but the recycling wouldn't have consecutive layers over a mile deep
Why not?
because they're consecutive layers all around the world.
Yeah, all the processes are happening at about the same time all around the world.
But they're the same layers. I don't know. Maybe you want to get back to biology.
Yeah, I mean, I know this much about geology, that if there's ground level all around the world and then you wait a while, there's going to be sediment on top of that ground layer all around the world.
But where's this sediment coming from, though? It's either coming from one thing or another.
Yeah, that's why it's kind of discontinuous. You're not going to find all the layers all the time. That's why Kent Hovind likes to say you can't find the fossil or the geologic column, but it does exist in some places, but not everywhere.
Not the entire geologic column.
Yeah, as far back as life goes.
Because
we stop finding life before we run out of geologic columns.
It's more like a geographic column where you have different geographies that you stack them on top of each other, and then you have the geologic column. but it's a fabrication.
Well, you have different geographies on the same layer.
You have different geography. You have different geographies around the world, and they say, "Oh, this is such and such a date. This is such and such a layer, and we'll stack it here. We'll put it here. We'll put it there." It's a fabrication. The whole geologic column is a fabrication.
How's that? Because we have it.
Because
go to the Grand Canyon.
It's not in one geographic location. It's in many geographic locations, and they're taken from here and there and the other place, and they're stacked on top of each other.
Except we have them all in order in lots of locations.
Yeah, you stack them in the order you want. Exactly what I'm saying. You stack them in the order that you want. You say this is such and such an age, it goes here. This is such and such an age, it goes there.
Nope.
When in reality,
we don't have to touch anything in the Grand Canyon. It's already there. The entire geologic column.
But it's not the entire geologic column.
For life, it is. We run out of column, or we run out of life before we hit the end of the column.
No, it's not.
Yeah.
It's not. It's
it
not
goes all the way down to the first microorganic life. And then there's still more layers underneath that.
No, there's more. It's more like igneous rock underneath that.
Yeah, but we run out of life before we run out of column. So we have the entire geologic column for life, and that's not the only location.
But not because you don't have
China and North Dakota.
But you don't have, all the dinosaurs in the Grand Canyon. They're taken from different other locations. You don't have all the bird fossils from China in the Grand Canyon. You don't have, from all around the world.
Yeah, and that's where dating comes in.
The only thing you have in the Grand Canyon is like nautiloids or something, and marine life. Of course, the marine life is in throughout all the layers.
No, but the way we date the other layers is...
So can you explain why marine life is in all of the layers?
Yeah, there was an ocean in the middle of America.
But you said they eroded from the mountain or something. A mountain that you weren't able to say where the mountain was.
Which mountain?
Well, it had to come from a mountain, right? Or did it fall from the sky?
What?
The sediment layers.
There's lots of processes that do that.
That they just, every once in a while, they deposit consecutive layers over a mile deep around the world. Water deposited sediment layers with what was living at the time in those layers. Every once in a while does that.
Does what?
Every once in a while, you think the Earth just deposited consecutive water-deposited sediment layers with living organisms that were living at the time.
No,
all around the world.
It's not all water deposited.
It's all water deposited. Yes.
It's not.
Yes, it is.
It's
I mean, there's volcanoes. I mean, volcanoes are volcanoes, but it's still. It doesn't matter. You're still having consecutive water deposited sediment layers. And so what if you have a volcano flow in between? That doesn't prove anything. It's still all water deposited sediment layers all the way down over a mile deep.
That means it's not all water deposited. It means
there are other ways. You want to be technical, but it's irrelevant. It's irrelevant whether or not there was a lava flow while the sediments were deposited.
Because that's a way that land forms, and there are other ways that land gets.
But it's not a significant amount. It's not a significant amount.
All right,
it was still water deposited anyways.
The Hawaiians are crying now. You just called them insignificant. No, but.
No, the Hawaiian Islands are very insignificant compared to 100 million cubic miles of water deposited sediments around the world. Yes. Very insignificant.
Yeah, and that's one way, apart from flooding, that it happens. And yeah, sometimes it floods.
And sometimes there's volcano flows while it's flooding and while it's depositing sediment layers. But that's, to me, it's...
So the other problem I have...
I don't even know how you can deny that that is water deposited sediments all the way down, with few exceptions of maybe ash or volcano flow,
Well, who
which is
says it's all
which
water
is totally
deposited?
irrelevant to the way that the sediments are deposited.
No, it's not. That is a way of gaining new land and new layers.
That's a very insignificant amount, and it's
And
happening. It's happening while the consecutive layers are being deposited, which is in rapid succession.
so, how does that work with the flood?
You tell me. How do
If
layers
it's
get
all happening at
deposited
once,
in
where
rapid
does the new
succession?
stuff come from? You can't. That doesn't work at
How
all.
do water deposited sediment layers become deposited in rapid succession without a global flood? You tell me.
Geology already explains that, and we just went over several
I
ways.
just told you what geology is. Geology is the evidence of the global flood. It's water
Well,
deposited
yeah.
sediments over a mile deep around the
Okay,
world.
let's go with geology. They disproved catastrophism
Geology,
a long time ago.
geology is the sediment layers, the water deposited sediment layers that were deposited by the global flood. That's what geology is.
That's impossible to happen.
It's
If it
not
all happens
impossible.
at
That's what
once, where do all the different layers of dirt come from? How is it digging up layers of dirt from somewhere else and putting it on top of nothing where it should
exactly
stop?
what happened. It shifts sediments around the world
So you
until it
only get
stops
one
shifting
layer.
sediments.
You only get one layer to spread around.
No, you're getting
Yeah,
sediments shifted from
that's
everywhere
just
around the world.
ridiculous.
You're getting every
So
wave
so you take
of
sediments from
sediment.
China and put them on America. Now what's on China? Nothing.
It doesn't matter, but you don't know what the world was like before the ocean sank down. When the ocean sank down, then there's no sediment layers in the ocean. Why isn't there sediment layers in the ocean?
There are.
No, not the comparable amount.
Well, one, because this is another thing that disproves the flood, is because water washes sediments away, especially moving water.
No, but it's not going to go anywhere unless the ocean floor is made and it's abducted.
Well, the other thing is um, the layers are different densities, except sometimes they repeat density, which is also impossible in the flood. If it was all mixed up in sediment, then it could potentially separate out if the waters were totally calm, which a worldwide violent flood is not. But
Well,
you can't have like limestone repeat in density. That's not how it works.
well, you said you didn't know anything about geology, but you know a little bit probably. What about the unconformity? You know what the unconformity is, right?
Yeah, you know what plate tectonics is, right?
You know the layers before the unconformity?
Uh, I don't know.
Those are the layers you said that there was only microbes in it?
I'm pretty sure the microbes are above that.
No, the unconformity, they're below the unconformity. The unconformity is as far as the layers go, and then you have the cross layers, which are probably, well, they might have been from the global flood. I don't know, but well, no, actually they weren't because they only have microbes in them. So they're probably from the first time the world was covered by water. Did you know that the world was covered by water in the creation?
Uh, that's I'm sure that's what the Bible says. I'm not sure why that's a credible source.
Well, I'm just telling you about the unconformity and the layers beneath the unconformity, which only have microbes in them. I'm just telling you about what the evidence is showing. The evidence is backing up what the Bible says.
So yeah, the nonconformity is Precambrian, so that's about as far as life goes.
Because the earth was covered by water at the time of creation before land appeared. So that covering of water made those layers down at the bottom of the Grand Canyon below the unconformity. And then below that, there's the great unconformity.
Okay, what is
But
that?
anyways, that backs up, corroborates what the Bible says about the earth being covered by water at the time of creation.
Why
So,
is that?
anyways,
Just because
those
it's
sediments were
slanted?
shifted. All the sediments above the unconformity were shifted sediments from one place to another until
But
the
where did they
water
come
receded.
from?
Then, when the water receded, you have all these layers of all these fossils that were buried of everything that was living at the time, or samples of things that were living at the time.
But where did it come from?
The animals came
No,
from
the
what was living
sediments.
on Earth,
If you
and then of
got
course
if you've got
it.
sea level layers on the Earth and then it floods, where does you only have limited space? So the Earth must have been mostly land, and we
Well,
must have. The only way that makes sense is if
it
the
was it was
continents were
very
greatly reduced in size.
it was very different in that water would come up at night to water the plants. It was like a hydroponic garden before the flood, and then when the waters came from below and from above, it was like a liquefaction. You know, the sediments got liquefied and they just were deposited and shifted into the sediment layers that we see today with all the living organisms, everything that was living on land at the time and in the sea, or samples of them are in those layers as
So,
we would accept with the marine life on the bottom and everything else on top.
well, we have marine life in every layer,
Right.
but
But
so
there's marine life
I
at the
just
bottom.
checked
There's
the
no rabbits didn't burrow underneath the ocean floor. So
yeah. So
you're not going to find
anything
rabbits
on the
underneath.
coasts. Do you believe mammals lived on the coast?
So you're not going to find mammals, I mean rabbits, beneath the ocean floor because they don't burrow there. You're going to find marine life first, and then everything else on top, and that's what we see.
So how come we don't see mammals below dinosaurs or anything?
No, there's mammals with dinosaurs.
I mean, like rabbits.
They're mammals, you know. Yeah, and besides, you don't know what's there because I don't trust them. I don't trust them with a 10-foot pole, anyways, to tell me what's there to
So
begin with.
I just checked the nonconformity is Precambrian, 4.5 billion years ago. So that covers all of life.
Below is the Precambrian, right? Below that's the
No, it
stuff
is the
that only
Precambrian.
has microbes.
The
That's the stuff that
nonconformity,
only has microbes in it, right?
yeah, and then we stopped finding them.
Right, right, exactly. So there's no big fossils in it, so that would mean it's probably from the layers from the time of creation.
And so
So,
where do all the rest of the layers come from?
oh man, you don't know where the rest of the layers came from?
If it's lava coming up
What
from
do
the
you-
bottom, then you're getting
no,
rock
there's insignificant amounts of lava. Lava is doesn't
or
make
or it, or plates getting pushed up. But
plates getting pushed up. Igneous rock pushes up through the sediment layers.
mhm.
And the sediment layers themselves are being pushed around all over the place too, but it's still initially horizontal layers because
So
a catastrophe that happened, you know, and then plus with the when the oceans opened up, that caused all kinds of forces going on. Then when the continent split, there was even more forces. When do you think the continent split?
I have no idea. I mean,
Why
my
why
main
would there,
problems with the flood are biological. So
why would there be sediment layers that are divided between North America and Europe?
because there was between North America and Europe.
That means they were connected, right, before they broke apart.
Sure.
So that means they broke apart after the global flood because the flood deposited the sediment layers.
So how does it? So have you ever seen a continent move that fast?
Well, if it's hit by an asteroid or something, sure, it could slip.
A whole continent?
Sure, of course.
It wouldn't crumble like rocks do when they're hit.
No, I'm talking about big asteroid causing an impact onto the plates which which could break apart and slip, and we can actually see the slip. We can see where the mid-Atlantic ridge opened up and separated, and North America and South America split off from Africa and Europe. We can see that, and on the other side, on the Pacific Ocean, the Pacific Rim, we can see where it buckled under in the deepest part of the ocean.
So if a giant rock hit other rocks, do you think it would just move out of the way? It wouldn't just shatter?
Well, that it did break the continents apart.
Yeah, but why aren't the continents shattered themselves?
Well, they just kind
Everything
of
would be
slid. They just
broken
kind of
apart.
slid.
Rock doesn't.
They were broken apart, and of course, there's undercurrents too. When you're talking about being hit by an asteroid, there's undercurrents of the mantle, and which caused the continents to slide, and the undercurrents also caused India to smash into Asia.
So, I mean, we're getting a little off topic
A
with
little,
the geology.
a little, but we're still talking about the time frame, though. That's the only thing. Because, I mean,
So, I mean, I'm happy to
you
talk about radiometric dating or the order of the fossils too.
well, you're appealing to more and more time because you need more and more time for your magic to occur, for your mutations to be selected and happen to be complementary. You know, one mutation, two mutation, three mutation. They all have to be complementary, and the chances of that are astronomical. You
But
know, the more
there are
mutations that are,
millions of mutations all the time,
more mutations that
so
are
the odds are
complementary,
actually 1.
the more astronomical it is. And you need billions of mutations
No,
that are
it's
all
so
complementary.
is it astronomical if I get a mutation for a shorter nose and shorter toes within a few generations?
I'm talking about the information. I'm not talking about the morphology, what you
That
call
is
morphology.
information. The morphology is controlled by control genes.
Yeah, but I'm talking about the vast amounts of information that's different between each living organism. Each different living organism has vast amounts of information that's different.
Within kind.
No, each different living organism has different instructions.
Yeah, and that also extends to within kind.
And it's vast amounts of instruction that's different.
Within kind, as well as outside of kind.
No,
There's a vast amount
I'm
of
talking about different kinds that have different information, vast amounts of different information that you have no way of acquiring.
uh, yeah, you do have a way of acquiring it, and we've demonstrated it in the lab.
A single mutation
Not a
is going
single
to
one.
produce billions of bits of data.
No, not a single mutation. Only
Well,
you can produce a billion bits of data with a duplication. It's not going to be different though.
I'm talking about vast amounts of instruction that one organism has that another one doesn't have, which
Mm-hmm.
is observed. That's what's observed. That's what the science says.
So part of junk DNA is also you can change that and get new genes, but a lot of it is
It's
unnecessary.
not
We've done
junk.
knockout experiments. We can delete
It's
all of
not
the junk
junk.
DNA, and the organism will be exactly the
It's
same
not
as the
junk. That
organism.
assertion was disproved. It's not junk.
I know, I've said that,
It's
but
not junk DNA. It's
you interpret the term junk as useless. It's
no, no, no. The scientists called it junk. The
and I'm
evolutionary
calling it junk.
scientists called it junk, and it's not junk.
I've got junk in my drawer.
No, it's copies of copies of copies. It's
Yeah,
copies of the original common ancestor,
yeah.
which is not
And
the
those can
same. Which
mutate
is
too.
not the same copy. It's not the same copy of the same information in each different living organism. All the copies are all different. All the
Yeah,
living organisms are all different because they're all ordered to
even
be different things.
even within kinds,
Why do you keep on talking about within kinds? I'm talking
because
about
the mutation can produce different, vastly different information within the same kind.
No, it's not vastly different information. It's copies of the same information. Humans are copies, are identical. They have
No, they're
identical
not.
information.
Every generation is different. Every child is different. We're not clones.
The number of copies are very, very small. I mean, the number of mutations are very, very small. And we all have the same information. Humans have the same information. We just have different numbers of copies expressed differently and stuff. But it's the same
That's
information.
exactly
Well,
how it
when
works.
if you go to a chimp or another animal, it's not going to be a copy of the same information. It's going to be different information that's being copied.
Except we have mostly the same information.
No, it's not mostly the same. Well, if you considering that everything grows, it consists of protein, and everything grows, but everything is ordered to be different things. That's what I'm saying. Not
So,
everything has
so
the
there's a
same
protein.
instructions.
There's
Not everything
protein.
has the same instructions. Different organisms have different instructions to be different things, and that's why they're different. That's why chimps are different than humans.
But those instructions are plastic. You know that.
No, no. I'm talking about information that is in one that's not in the other. It's not a
And it can
copy.
change.
No,
Yeah, the DNA can change. Every
I'm
generation it
talking about
changes.
different instruction.
Yep.
Read my lips, different
Yep. A
instruction.
change means a difference. So
And
there's a
chimps
protein called
have different
cytochrome C.
instruction than what we have. Rabbits have different instruction than what chimps have.
So the
So that's why
chimpanzee.
the animal is different is because it has different instructions that
Uh-huh.
we do not have.
Uh-huh.
It's not a copy.
And we know of
It's
ways
not
that
a
those
copy of
instructions
our
change to different
instruction.
instructions.
Go
So
ahead.
chimpanzee has the exact same sequence, not a single difference in the protein cytochrome C. We have the same
So
sequence.
so
Worms
that's not what I'm talking about.
worms have the exact same protein. It's the same thing, but they
So
have a different sequence for it. Why would God do
so
that?
so because everything has to grow, everything has to consist of proteins.
Yeah, why would God use a different sequence for the same protein?
Why not?
Because on one hand you argue common tools, but on the other hand we can have
I'm
tweaks
not
to
the
that
one saying we're
information.
related to each other.
I'm not saying that either in this point.
Well, yeah, but you're giving proof that the other animals are different than us.
Why would a worm have the same protein but a different sequence for that protein?
Why not?
Because it's not created.
Because it's
Because it's
not the same
mutated.
thing as everything else. It's a different. It's instructed to be different. It's a different
Because
organism.
it's mutated. So we have a
Well,
modified version of that, which is a little bit
regardless of
different.
what it is, it's instructed to be a worm.
Yep. And those instructions change every generation. So
Um,
how
but it's
again,
but
how
it's
far
bottleneck.
can that change?
But your belief is bottleneck. It's all bottleneck all the way. It's infinite possibilities in
That's
limited time and space.
that's
It's
another fallacy. It's only you're limited to what's already there in the parent generation.
No, the
Yeah, you
instruction is
are.
not already there. That's the point I'm making. The instruction is not already there. You have to get the instruction that's not there.
Your parents give it to you.
No,
Wait, that's exactly
my
how it
parents did
works.
not give me instruction that wasn't there.
Yeah, they did.
No, my parents gave me instruction that was already there.
Yeah, but you have different instructions from them.
No, I have
You have a
different
couple
numbers of
mutations.
copy. I have different numbers of copies of the same information, and
Every
it's almost
person
identical information for that matter because it's just different genes being expressed differently.
every person has mutations. So you have a copy of a gene from one of your parents that's slightly mutated.
Which doesn't make any difference whatsoever, except that maybe I have a spot that they don't have on me on my face or
Or maybe
something.
your bones are a little longer.
And and that proves what I mean. There's variation within the kind anyway.
So
I
what's
mean
the limit? What's to
that's
stop
from
a
recombination. When you have recombination, you're going to get
so just
different amounts of protein, different timing for different results.
so
But it's
what would limit a chimpanzee from its face getting smushed in, a little less elongated, losing some of its hair, and standing upright, getting a little bit longer leg bones.
It would need a lot of different instruction than what it has.
But we already know that they can do all of that. We know they
Because
can lose hair. We know that their bones
that
can get longer.
the morphology is not the only change there is. Chimps were ordered to be chimps, and we were ordered to be humans.
So if a chimp lost its hair and got longer legs and stood upright and got a flat face, is it still a chimp?
Hold on a second. Let me do this here. You're familiar with the?
Well, are you going to answer the question?
Yeah, I'm going to answer the question. You're familiar with the thingy. Hold on 1 second here. Let me go here. You're familiar with this, right?
What about it? The tongue?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Speaking of flattening the face and this and that and the other thing, you think that was accomplished by small changes over time?
Yeah.
And you got one tongue that originates. You got one tongue that originates in the beak. The other one originates below the eyeball. And how did it happen to go over the brain and around through its mouth? How did that happen?
Well, it probably started near the mouth and got a little bit further, and then got a little bit further than that. That's what happens.
And what happened in
the shape of the bone?
What happened in the meantime? What happened in the meantime while the tongue was busy crawling itself over the brain?
In the meantime, it was almost exactly the same as its parents. So
in the meantime, it was starving for food.
No, it was almost exactly the same as its parents.
In the meantime, you got one tongue that originates in the tip of the beak. You got another tongue that originates underneath the eyeball. And ordinary birds that don't have a tongue that moves out is stationary, connected to the lower jaw. So what happens in the meantime while it's curling its tongue around? Is this what's it eating in the meantime while it's diversifying so that it can stick its tongue out to get the nectar? What's it eating in the meantime for billions and millions and billions of years, like you imagine?
Again, it's not going to be a leap like you think. It's going to have almost exactly the same morphology as its parents. So
no, come on,
imagine the parent is eating something. It eats the same thing.
You're being silly.
That's exactly how it works.
You're being silly.
No, it doesn't just transform one day from one to the other. So, you want to answer my question?
Well, I just did.
No. If a chimpanzee loses its hair, gets longer leg bones, stands upright, and gets a flat face, is it still a chimp?
Yes, it's still a chimp because it's ordered to be a chimp.
Of chimp?
That's what I'm saying. It's different instruction to be a different thing. It's still a chimp, no matter what its morphology is still ordered to be a chimp. It's the same thing with a cat. A cat is always going to be a cat. A dog is always going to be a dog because that's what it's ordered to be. Regardless of what it looks like.
Science. It's just going to be what it's going to be. No.
Regardless of what it looks like, it's still ordered to be what it is, and it's not going to be anything other than what it is because that's the only information that it has.
Nope, it gains new information.
No, it does not gain vast amounts of information.
It's a different kind of chimp now, right? It's a new species of chimp.
Yeah, you're imagining things now.
No, it's a new species of chimp. So, what if it has a deletion of those genes that humans don't have, but chimps do have, and it gains a human brain?
And how is it going to get the vast amounts of information for that to happen?
It doesn't. There's actually less information in a human brain than there is in a chimpanzee brain.
It doesn't matter. It's different instruction. It's different instruction to be a different thing.
Yeah, it's literally just a deletion. There's less suppression of cell growth. There's genes that chimps have that suppress cell growth in the brain. We have those deleted, so we have bigger, more complex brains. That's how you get new information, just
But
simply by tweaking the
that's
same
not how
information.
you get a human, though. That's not how you get a
That's how you get a
human.
human brain.
You have whales that have bigger brains than what we have. More intelligent apparently, and they're still they couldn't tell you how to be saved. They couldn't tell you that your maker is the only one that can remake you again.
Well, size isn't exactly the same thing as intelligence.
Well, that's what you said. You said size. You
Yeah,
said it's a
relative.
bigger brain. That's what you said.
Yeah, but a whale doesn't have a more
More
intelligent brain than a
neurons.
human just because it's larger. It has to be more complex too.
No,
So
it is.
we have
There
a
is a
denser
whale.
brain.
There is
There's size, and there's density.
there is a whale that has more neurons than what we have,
Okay, and
and so that
children have more neurons than you do.
theoretically,
Every
It's smarter than we are. Theoretically,
No, that's not how it works. Children have more neurons than adults.
no, but that's beside the point.
No, it's not, because it's changing of existing information. So you remove some information and you gain more meaningful information.
No, but the point is that there is a whale. It took them a while to find it, but there is a whale that is theoretically more intelligent than we are because it has
I mean, I've
neurons.
heard that dolphins are theoretically as
No,
intelligent as us, but
no,
they just don't have the
no,
skills to make tools.
no, no. There's only one whale that they found that is more intelligent than us theoretically, and it still can't tell
Not
you that
because of
only
the
your
size of
maker
its
can be your
brain.
savior.
Well, you can't tell me that either.
Yeah, I
Not
can.
with any sort of
Yeah, I can because
evidence.
you were made. I can tell you that you were ordered to be a human, and that only the person or the creator that ordered you to be a human can recreate you again. Nobody else
Well,
can.
I know science, so I know that I came from an ape.
No, science is what you can know, and you can't know that you came from an ape because apes
I do
don't
know that.
have the information that we have, and we don't have the information that apes had because we're ordered to be different animals.
And we know exactly how that information can change into one another.
No, you don't. No,
Yeah,
you
we
don't. You're
do.
just
It's
you're
called
guessing that
genetics.
mutation. You're guessing that mutations is going to add billions of bits of
No,
programming
we've
that's not
observed
there.
that. We have observed that. And we
No, you
also
haven't. No, you
observed
haven't.
that the
You
further we
have
go down, the more ape-like
no,
all human
no,
skulls look
no. You're
until
being
it's
silly
only
now.
apes.
You're being silly now.
That's
You have
just that's just the
you have
facts. I'm just
not
naming off
observed
facts.
vast amounts of programming being
It's not vast, it's
concatenated.
tiny.
Concatenated, programmed. The information has to be programmed,
No, it doesn't. We
and
know that it can
programming doesn't
change.
program itself,
Who
and
programmed who
neither does
programmed E.
mutation.
coli to digest sick
You
air?
if you mutate Windows, you're not going to concatenate another programming system.
Yeah, you can.
No, by intent, yes, you can, but not by accident.
You can by accident.
No,
Yep, you can start changing bits, and
there
as
you go,
long as you have a
appealing to
selection
infinite
filter,
possibilities in limited time and space. Again, that's the
no,
same
you just
thing as
have to
appealing
apply
to
a
God.
selection filter. So
If you
how did
if you appeal to every possibility, you're appealing to God because God is infinite. That's the definition of God. God is infinite, all knowing, all powerful.
it doesn't mean it exists. So how did
Well,
E.
you exist.
coli? How did E.
You exist,
coli?
so your creator exists. You have infinite possibilities and limited time and space. That's proof that your maker, a creator, God exists.
No, it's not.
Yes, it
It
is.
could be an alien.
Yes, it is.
No, it's not. So
Yes, it is.
no, it's not.
No, aliens
How
have
did
to
E.
be
coli?
concatenated too. If aliens existed and made us, they have to be concatenated too. And then who made the aliens?
Could have evolved. I don't know.
No, no,
Just
no.
because,
Because you're
again,
appealing to
we might
infinite
not even know.
possibilities. You're appealing to infinite possibilities, and that's an
You're
appeal to
appealing
God.
to magic and superstition. So let's stick to science. So how did we get E.
Science is what you can
coli?
know.
Yep. How did we get E. coli to evolve a new enzyme?
Science is what you can know.
How did we get E. coli to get a new gene?
Did it change from being E. coli?
No, but
No. Okay.
it built new genes. What you were saying is the barrier between
No, it's
species.
not vast amounts. It's
Yeah.
not vast amounts, and that's just
Uh-huh.
a change from what's already there. It's a change of what's
So
already there.
so if it happened once, it can happen again.
Yeah, if you change what's already there, it's going to change what's already there, and it's not going to add
Yep. And then
information that's not
if you
there.
change it again, then it's going to be 2 times as different as it was when it started. If you change it again, it's going to be 3 times more different. How many times can it change?
Yeah, how much time do you have for that to happen?
We have
You
billions of
don't have
years.
infinite time, and you don't have infinite possibilities
No, we
of
don't.
things occurring.
We have about 4 billion years.
An accidental change is not going to concatenate instruction programming,
Yes, it does. If
directed
you
working
apply a
mechanism.
Yeah, it does, because if
Show
you get
me, show me,
variation, natural
show me,
variation comes from mutation. So
show
if you
me,
select the ones that work, then you're going to get a direction of change.
show me a directed working mechanism that made itself.
The
Uh,
citrate
that's
enzyme in E.
that's a
coli.
biogenesis. Okay.
E. coli directed its own evolution of a new enzyme.
And that doesn't give instructions to be any other thing than what you were directed to be.
Yeah, but since we know that those kinds of mutations can build genomes, your objection is gone.
No, because you don't have infinite possibilities in limited time and space.
I've already gone over this. You're
No, you
limited
haven't
to the
because you don't
parent
even know what the
DNA.
math is. You don't even understand the math on it.
I just debunked your math. It's based on the parent DNA. And your math is based on every protein being built from scratch, and that's not how it works. It's built from an existing protein. It's built from an existing gene.
Well, if you're talking about an already created thing,
That's why I said assume life was created. Assume there was a created cell.
but a biogenesis and evolution both have had the
So,
same problem. Listen to me. They both have the same problem of not being able to acquire instruction that's not there.
no, because E. coli acquired instruction that was not there.
But you don't understand that it would fall apart before it ever put itself into directed working order.
No, because it
Yes,
didn't. We observed it.
that's
We
because it's
observed it
bottleneck
happening and not what you say happens.
because it's bottleneck all the way up.
Except
If
it
it
happened. We
if
observed
it
this
was
in the
top
lab,
down, I could
and it was
understand.
repeated.
I could understand if all the information was there initially, but you're talking about bottom up. You're talking about getting all the information from making mistakes.
They're not mistakes. They're changes.
Yeah, mistakes, but they have to it has to be a
No,
mistake though.
changes. There's mistake implies intent. It's a change. Some changes work. Some changes don't.
No, but it is a mistake. It's an error. It's an
No,
error in
because some
reproduce. It's an error in copy. It's a copying error.
okay, and some of those errors result in better
Okay,
results.
thank you. Admit it's an error. Okay, so it's an
I'm going to
error.
use your language to
So
try
you
and
were
get in your
relying
head.
on mistakes
It's
to
not a
make
mistake.
every directed working mechanism there is.
You can use that language, but it doesn't change how it works.
And even your acquiring of a new gene, like you say, doesn't mean that it's going to be uh, a viable gene for very long, or a necessary gene for very long. So you're not really proving anything anyway.
So again, you can assume that God created the first life with DNA. It already has genes which can mutate. The amoeba has the largest genome of
Okay,
all organisms.
okay, you lost.
The amoeba has the largest genome of all organisms. So you can just assume God made the first cells. Cells already have the capacity
See,
to
you
change.
don't even believe that God made the first organism anyway to begin with. So you're
No, I
according to
don't.
your
It
belief, you
doesn't
have to
matter then.
start with a
It's irrelevant.
biogenesis anyway,
It's
according to your belief,
yeah, I'm throwing
because
you a
you don't
bone
believe
because it's
in it
irrelevant.
anyways. Because you don't believe in a creator anyway.
It's irrelevant.
If you did, a creator can make everything ordered to be what it's
And
ordered
a
to be.
creator, a more impressive creator, would be one that let things evolve.
A more what?
Impressive.
Impressive?
Yeah, it's more impressive to design all of evolution than it is to just design all the animals as is.
Not impressive because it doesn't work.
It does work.
It doesn't work.
We've observed it.
No, I didn't. I
Yes, we did.
observed a change
We've
that's not.
observed single cells evolving into multicellular
I
organisms.
observed a change that isn't necessarily going to cause the thing to morph.
We observed that.
No,
Yeah.
morphine you observe, but it's from existing information. It's different amounts of different information, of the
Yep.
same information, I mean.
Mm-hmm. Yep. We change the existing information, and you get a
No,
slight difference. So how
it's not
how
a
far can a
change. It's
bone?
different. It's different amounts of the same information. It's
Right.
different
Uh-huh.
quantities of the
Yep.
same
So a little
information.
bit extra bone here, a little bit less bone there. That kind
Right,
of
which
thing.
is not going to change
Which
what
is
it's directed to
observed.
be.
Yeah, it will.
No, it'll
If
just
you
change the
add them
shape.
up, if you're looking at a single change, it's not going to.
It'll
I don't know why
change
you're
the
stuck on a
shape.
single change.
It'll
It's
change the
multiple
shape
changes.
drastically. It will not change what it's ordered to be. It will not change what it's directed to be.
That's how
It'll
modifiers
always be.
works.
It'll always be a copy of a copy of a copy.
Yep, that's why we're still fish.
No,
Yeah.
we have instruction that fish don't have.
Uh-huh.
We have instruction that chimps
Because a
don't
fish
have.
copied and it had different instructions, and a fish copied and it had different instructions, and thousands of generations copied and had different instructions every generation until it had really thick
that's your
fins.
silly belief. You have a silly belief.
No, we already know of fish that can walk on land.
It's
All we
your
need to
silly
know
belief because the
it's an
flood
observed fact, actually,
the
that
flood
bones
blew
can get thicker and bones can change. It's an observed
because
fact that
the
fish can
flood
breathe
sediment
and
layers
walk on
debunks
land.
your idea of evolution. The flood sediment layers proves that everything was buried
No,
less than
not a single
5,000 years
geologist will agree
ago.
with you.
So there is no evolution because all of your supposed common ancestry was buried in the same year.
You're just denying the
So
observable facts. We have
you are
observed.
debunked, officially debunked, because the global flood
Did you
buried
assert
all of your
fairy tale?
transitional species in the same year. So there is no evolution to begin. It's not observed. What's observed is evidence of the global flood. That's what observed. What's observed.
I
So
wonder
you are
why all the scientists
officially
laugh at creationism.
debunked. Evolution is officially garbage. It's nonsense. It never could exist and never would exist, and the global flood proves it.
Geologists disproved catastrophism a long time ago.
I don't care
It's
what the
already
geologists
official.
don't know.
It's already
The
official that you
geologists
lost.
can't tell me.
I'm just here to help you.
The geologists they
So-
can't tell me even the amount of the sedimentation around the world. They don't even know what the quantity, the volume of consecutive layers of sediments around the world are to tell me. So what's a geologist going to tell me? He can't tell me anything. He can't tell me. He's not going to tell me that everything they all have marine life in them. They were all water deposited. All the sediments were water deposited consecutively in rapid succession by the global flood. They can't tell me that because
you're smarter than them.
Because they believe nonsense. They believe stupidity.
Yeah, you're smarter than all those people who earned their degrees.
You go back to your teachers and you tell them all the nonsense that they're teaching is just stupid nonsense.
Yeah, because you have a degree in it.
Yeah, because I'm telling you what happened. I'm telling you what the evidence is.
You're telling me what you want
I'm
to believe.
telling you what the evidence is, and you were
tale.
unable to tell me anything to the contrary.
You're telling me
and
what
of course,
you want to believe.
You know, who are you? Your professors, your scientists can't tell me anything to the contrary.
Well, I've actually mutated bacteria myself, so that's who I am. Do you agree that a single cell
so you
intentionally
changed the genome?
Evolution? Do you agree that
you intentionally changed the genome, and what does that prove?
Is a single cell a different kind than a multicellular organism? Because we've observed that evolving in real time.
Tell me where male and female came from.
They are not male and female.
Okay, tell me where male and female came from.
How about we stick on the example that I want to talk about?
How about we talk about male and female?
You're changing the subject. We have observed a single cell evolve into a multicellular organism.
So have you observed it change into male and female?
Does it matter?
Yes, it does.
Yes,
it does, because that's what we are.
You're changing the subject.
Male and female.
No, you're changing the subject.
No, I'm not.
Yes, you are. You're
it's
changing
the same
it from
thing.
multicellular
Evolution.
to sex.
You're
You're
talking
literally
about
changing.
evolution.
You are
It's
literally
the same.
changing.
It's the same thing. It's the same thing. You
No, it's
change it
not.
from single cell to multiple cell. Does it have a liver? Does it have a kidney? No.
It has different tissues.
No.
Yep.
No.
Yep.
Does it have? Does it change into male and female? How does it change into male and female?
You really.
Okay. Debunked.
You are changing the subject.
Debunked. No. It's the
No, you
same
can't
subject.
handle. You just
It's
got
the same
disproven, so you're
subject. It's
changing
the
the subject.
progression of a single-celled organism to where we are today. That's your topic. That's evolution, and that's stupidity. It's rubbish.
Multicellularity,
Stupidity.
multicellularity is not the same subject as sexual reproduction.
No, the subject is from single cell to multi-cell to us. That's what the subject is. Evolution, all the way, all the way.
And I'm
Evolution.
trying to talk about the evolution of multicellularity. You don't want to go there, which is why you want to change to sexual reproduction.
No, it doesn't matter. It doesn't
It
matter
does
if it
matter.
changes. It doesn't matter if it changes from single cell to multi-cell. That's just compatible. It's the genome that's already compatible with that. It didn't make a liver.
It's
It
due to
didn't
a
make a
mutation.
kidney. It didn't make sexual reproductive organs,
Well, it can.
but it has to.
So you at least accept that it happens. A single cell can evolve into a multicellular
No,
organism.
it doesn't evolve. There is no evolution. Evolution does not
Okay, then
exist.
how come we
The
observed it
single
happening?
cell, the
How did
single
we?
cell is compatible with whatever it does. Whatever it does, it has properties to do whatever it does, but it doesn't turn
And you
into
can,
male and
and
female
we've seen those properties
because
change
it
in real
does not
time.
have instructions to turn into male and female. It does not have
It
instructions for that.
does. It does. So
No, it doesn't have instructions to be
it
male or
it
female.
most certainly does.
No, it doesn't.
It obviously does. So
What do you mean it obviously does?
do you accept that we
It, does,
have
it can't even make a
observed
liver. It can't even make a lung.
do you accept that we've observed single cells evolve into multicellular stages?
I already told you that if it has properties to do that, it will do that, but it doesn't have instruction to make liver, kidneys, lung, or male and female sexual organs, reproductive organs.
You're moving the goalposts.
No, I'm not.
Yeah, you are.
Because no,
So a
no,
single
you
cell
don't
is
want
the
to talk
same
about
kind.
your topic. Your topic of evolution is from single cell to vertebrates, mammals, and humans. That's what your
So you're telling
evolution
me
topic is about. That's
you're
what your
telling me
evolution topic covers.
you're telling
And
me
you don't
that
want to go there. You don't want to go there. You don't
I'm
want
about
to.
to.
You don't want to admit the fact that there is no
I'm
instruction
about to.
for male and female in single cells.
I'm getting there. So you
No,
you
you're not
agree?
getting there because there is no instruction for that.
No, I'm literally getting there. So you agree that single cell to multi-cell is within kind change. Change of chromosome number is within kind change. Change of bone shape and size is within kind
It
change.
doesn't even have a
But
bone
you
yet. What are you
don't.
talking about? It doesn't have a bone yet.
Yeah, I'm not talking about an algae has a bone.
Of course
So
not.
you are aware bones are made of
You're
cells,
talking
right?
about a single cell that changes into multi-cell, and where does the bone come from? Where did the kidney come from? Where did the liver come from?
You are
It doesn't
aware.
have instruction. It does not have instruction for that.
Yeah, it does.
No, it does not.
Yeah, it does, and I'll explain why. So all cells, well, not all cells, but cells can communicate with each other, and this is how.
Yeah,
There's
you know
one
what
reason.
you sound like? You sound like a troll. You sound to me like a troll. You know it's wrong, and you're just
Yeah, can
trolling.
you not interrupt
You're
me?
just trolling along anyways because
No,
there is no
you're
information.
just
There
losing,
is no
so you want to
information for any
interrupt
of
me.
that. Right, go ahead. Go ahead, explain yourself.
So the cells can communicate with each other. This is how they genetically limit each other to a number, a limited number. They went from single cells, evolved into multicellular with a limited number of cells, and they do this by communicating with each other. So once they are surrounded by enough signal from the other cells, they tell each other to stop reproducing. That is linked to a mutation, a genetic difference. So
So you observe that?
once you have communication between cells,
You observe that?
yes, that is observed.
What's observed again? Go
Do you
ahead.
want do you want the name of the study?
No, just tell me what happened.
Communication between cells.
Yeah, we know that.
Yeah. So cells can tell each other to turn on and off genes,
Okay, on and off
right?
genes. Okay, go ahead.
Right? Okay. So some cells can tell other cells to turn on and off certain genes. So that's how you get tissues. The outside cells could tell the inside cells to start producing a certain enzyme. So
Yeah, but it
that's how
has
you
to
get
have
a
it
liver.
has to have instructions to do so, though.
Though it already has this instructions to do that.
It has written instructions for things to go and turn into skin and turn into whatever. No, no, it does
Not the
not.
algae. You see, you keep conflating. You keep going from one thing all the way millions of years and assuming that it's all from one mutation.
No,
That's not
no,
how it
you believe
works.
in millions of years.
So it's not just one mutation. It doesn't happen just like that.
Oh, it doesn't happen just like that. But I'm talking about what you observed, though.
So you're asking me how a very primitive
You said it was observed.
multicellular
I'm tell me
organism.
what's observed. And you said it was observed. And I said, no, it's not observed. And you said, yeah, it's observed in millions of years.
No, that's not what I
So
said.
now that's why I
Again, you
think
conflate two
you're just
different
trolling.
things. You're not able to have
You're
separate
just
ideas.
trolling. You're trolling.
You're trolling. So
No, you're the one that's talking about you observed it in millions of years.
no, I never said that.
Yes, you
That's a
did.
lie.
Yes, you did. Roll back
No,
the tape. You did.
I did not say that.
Yes, you did.
No, I said something about millions of years and I said something about
Millions
observed,
of years. I
and you're
said, show
just
me. I said,
sticking
did
those
you
two
observe it? You said,
sentences
yeah,
together.
in millions of years.
So you're taking two things that I said that already existed and you're making something new out of it. See how evolution works?
You're trolling.
And no, you are now
You're
lying and
trolling.
trolling me.
All right, I'm asking for what's observed. I'm not asking for millions of
I
years.
never said I observed millions of years, but we
I'm
do
asking
observe
for
millions
what's
of years in the
observed. I'm
fossil record.
asking for what you observed.
Right.
You said it turns into a liver and a bone and skin or whatever. I'm asking if it's observed and did you observe it?
Yeah, we've observed tissue differentiation. And
Tissue
guess what an organ is?
differentiation.
Guess what an organ is? It's a bunch of tissue.
Uh, tissue
So,
differentiation.
so guess
What's the
what?
exact? What are
You
you
can
talking
make
about? You're
tissue
talking
bigger and
about a single
smaller.
cell. Are you talking about a single cell that became multicellular and differentiated tissue?
Yeah,
You observe that.
yeah.
Okay, what's it called?
It's called chlamydomonas.
But it's you're only talking about what it was already compatible to do anyway.
Yes, cells are
Yes.
compatible. They have the capacity to change function and differentiate. They have the
Okay, but
capacity to gain new instruction.
right. But did you observe the bone being formed, or the kidney, or the heart, or anything? Liver?
We observe a species of catfish building totally different types of skeletons in their
Did you
fins
observe it
just
forming a
through
mouth
mutation.
and a digestive system?
Nope, and we don't need to.
You don't need to.
Nope, because we
No.
already know
What
how
did you
that
observe?
works.
Sorry, I didn't hear what you said. What did you observe? A
We
what
already
turn?
know how that works. We already know how tissues can form shapes, how tissues can
What did you say that
differentiate,
you
how
observed?
tissues can communicate with each other.
What did you just say that you observed? The catfish what?
Catfish have, there's a species of catfish that have a lot of mutations to their fin bones, and every
Okay,
one
but
of them has like really wildly different
it's not
skeletons
a
in their
single
fins.
cell turning it into multi cell.
Yeah, you're kind of conflating again.
So what does that have to do with a single cell turning into multi-cell,
Well,
gaining a
that's been
liver and a
observed.
bone?
That's been observed. But
What?
but the point about the catfish is to show how we have the instruction for bone and we have the instruction for where how big the bone is and where to place the bone. We can
We know that
change.
already. We
Yeah,
know that already.
and we observe changes in these catfish genes for the location and size of these bones, and we observe that the bones are in different locations, different sizes, different shapes.
So
So
you
that
mean
proves evolution.
in different catfish, there are different things. Yeah.
No, same catfish species.
Oh, same catfish. Okay.
Hmm.
All right.
Let me see.
So, I mean, we already know that. We already know where we have
It's
on and off genes
it's
that, says how big, how long,
yeah, and those can
how
change.
strong. Yeah, we know that. But that's existing information. What's
Uh-huh.
that got to do with the price of tea in China?
Evolution only works with existing information.
Right. But
It
there is no
takes
evolution, though. That's the thing. There is
it
no
takes
evolution.
it takes existing information and it changes it.
Okay, if you change
So,
what's there, you're not going to get information that's not there.
what is telling a fish to always have fin bones? Is there anything that can stop
Yes,
a fish
the
from
genes.
growing bones that are better for walking on land? Since we already know fish do walk on land sometimes.
The genes, yeah. The genes will tell it what to do.
Okay, so what if it? So generation one gets a little bit better bones for walking on land. Generation two gets a little bit better. Generation three
Okay,
gets a little bit better. Where does it
okay.
stop?
How long do you think those mud skippers have been skipping on mud?
Well, they're fine.
Probably quite a while, right? And how long do you
Yeah.
think the lungfish has been a lungfish and it stayed a lungfish?
Well, uh, mud
Quite a
skippers were
while.
not always mud skippers. They're
Quite a
gobies.
while.
They're goby fish.
Point
So there's
is
other
that
gobies.
it's still going to be a fish, no matter if it walks on land and climbs trees and swings on vines like a monkey. It's still a fish.
That's why we consider ourselves fish.
But it's
We
not a fish. A fish
monkeys
is a
are
fish.
fish, and we are monkeys. We are monkey fish. I know it sounds weird, but that's how
It
modifiable it
sounds
is.
like you're trolling. It sounds ridiculous. It sounds
So,
stupid.
so if you were God or if you had magic powers and you could change a fish, you could demonstrate evolution to yourself. You could stretch out its little fin bones, give it articulation, give
That's
it
intent.
muscles.
You're talking about intent.
Uh-huh.
Evolution doesn't have intent.
Right. So
And
it
so
doesn't go
evolution
very
doesn't
fast.
exist because there's no intent.
Right, but it still produces variation. And that
Everything we
variation can
see
be
has
selected.
intent, has purpose and intent.
So the goby fish are swimming fish. They don't go on land, except for the mud skippers, which is one subspecies of the goby fish that have thicker fins and they can gulp air and go on land. And there was another species of fish that they observed
That's how they reproduce.
evolved better. It was a lungfish, and it evolved better locomotion over land. They raised them on land.
The who raised on land what?
Scientists.
A what fish on land?
It's a type of lungfish
Oh,
that they
lungfish.
raised on land.
We know about lungfish,
Yeah.
and they
So if
walk on
you
land.
Yeah, so how good could a fish get at going on land? Do you think that they could get better at retaining moisture?
Obviously, it didn't get any better than being a fish
In like a year? No.
because it only has instructions to be a fish. That's my point.
I,
Is
so
that you have to
so
look at the instructions of what it is instructed to be.
so what you're basically saying is, well, you can't count to 1 billion in one day, so it's impossible to do it in a year.
What you're saying is that you can get instruction that's not there magically out of thin air.
No, that's what you're saying. That's
No, I'm
you
saying you
think
can't
God
get that.
gave us
I'm saying you can't get
instructions
that.
out of thin air with magic. I'm saying we got instructions via
No,
mutation,
I'm saying
which is
it comes
observed
from
and
intent
proved.
and purpose. It comes from intent and purpose by a creator.
That's still magic.
Well, it's infinite potential and
Magic.
limited time and space. It's infinite potential and limited
Either
time and
God had
space,
a
which is
lab
not
or
possible
it was
for
magic.
evolution
So
because you don't have
so
infinite potential, limited time and space.
we observe that mutations can make minor changes in observable time and give us information that was not there before. And all evolutionists are saying is that, hey, if that happened more than once, and maybe 10 times, 100 times, well, we would have a much different organism. So what's the limit? How many, like, where does that stop?
You
Just
think
because I
this?
can
You think
count to
this happened in
5
how much time? You think this happened in how much time?
millions of years.
How many billions of years? You said.
Well, billions for the entire scale, but most of life is
Well,
microorganisms.
that's how about 600 and some odd million years, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. You know what would happen in 50 million years?
What?
All the flood sediments from the flood would have been washed into the ocean.
Okay.
So
By what?
your time scale is nutty. Your
All
time
right. So,
scale is reaching for the stars within limited time and
well,
space.
the experts don't agree, but
The
let's
experts are
assume
wrong
let's just
because they
assume you're
because
correct.
they don't know what the math is, or they're ignoring what the math is.
Okay, you're smarter than the experts. We've established this. Okay. So, assuming you're correct,
So stop teaching evolution because it doesn't exist.
that I'm being facetious, obviously.
Stop teaching evolution
No,
because it's
the
nonsense. It's
so
absurd.
let's
It's reaching for the stars in limited
yeah.
time and space.
Except we've cured diseases with it and predicted
No, you
fossils that
haven't.
you
You've
can't do. You
cured
can't do that.
diseases with known information by intent.
So, yeah, because we have a correct model called
No,
evolution.
because you have a mind. Because you have intent. You have purpose.
Right, and we
And
use that
mistakes
mind to
don't have
model
intent or
reality,
purpose.
and the model of evolution is able to predict things in biology.
There is no model of evolution because it's never been observed. It doesn't exist. Put that
That's
out of your mind.
that's
Evolution does
bullshit
not
because
exist.
I
Repeat to
studied the
yourself
model
a
of evolution.
thousand times. Evolution does not exist. It does not exist in limited time and space.
You can keep repeating that. So let's just assume that you're right about the flood. Let's do
No.
let's do
Yeah,
a thought
assume
experiment.
that I'm right, that geology
If
is proof of is evidence of the global flood because that's what the evidence is, and
if
so
I'm if I'm
you
gonna
can
assume something,
you
I'm
can
gonna
assume that
assume with the
no
experts.
evolution happened because all of your progression is right there in those layers.
So if I'm gonna assume something, I'm gonna go with the experts. So
No, you said assume.
if there's
You said
enough
assume the
time,
flood exists. You said assume the flood happened.
sure.
Yeah. So all your evolution is in those flood layers that happened in 1 year, less than
I
1 year.
assumed God created first life at the beginning, but
What?
right now I'm saying just okay, just assume you're right for this example. What if we had what if we did have millions of years? Just assuming the millions of years.
Millions of
Can
years
evolution
would
occur,
have
or are you
washed all
saying
the sediments into the ocean. I just told you.
by what?
50 million years.
By what? What's washing it into the ocean?
By erosion. The present rate of erosion would have eroded all the sediments into the ocean in 50 million years.
Yeah, except that
Some
there's
say even less.
continental
Some say
uplift.
30 some million years.
Yeah, geologists already account for that.
You accounted for that.
So, are you saying that evolution is possible if given enough time, but there just isn't enough time? Is that what you're saying?
I'm saying you can't have infinite. You know what infinite possibility is?
Yeah, and you know that I've uh, rebutted that every time you keep
That's
bringing it
what
up.
you need. You need infinite possibilities, and you don't have infinite possibilities, and you don't have infinite time and space either. You're appealing to
You don't
God.
need
You're
either of
appealing to
those. No,
God.
that's not how it works.
The realm of infinite possibilities is the realm of God. It's not the realm of limited time and space.
That's rhetoric. You know that's not how
No,
it
it's not
works.
rhetoric. It's fact.
No.
I'm talking about we exist in limited time and space. It's a
Are you saying
fabrication.
that that evolution itself is impossible, or are you saying that there's just not enough time?
No, you still don't get it. You don't. You don't get that writing instructions will never happen in any amount of time.
So you're saying
Writing
time's irrelevant.
instructions that aren't there will never happen in any amount of time because it'll fall apart much faster then it'll ever put itself into directed working order. You don't get it yet.
So you're saying time is irrelevant?
No amount of time is enough because
It
it'll fall
is.
apart before it ever puts itself into directed working order. I'm trying
What
to
are you
beat that
basing
through
that
your
on?
head.
That's it. No,
I'm
because we
trying to beat
observe the
that into
opposite.
your skull. You don't get it. You don't get it yet.
Yeah, you don't get it.
And
We have
you
observed
can't explain
thousands of
yourself, can you?
generations
And you can't
evolving.
explain. You can't explain yourself. You can't account for your belief.
I don't have any belief. I'm just recounting
It's a
observed
belief. It's a belief. You
facts.
didn't see it. It's a belief.
Yeah, we have seen it. We've
No, you
observed
didn't.
evolution.
I just told you. I just told you to show me what you have seen, and then you
And
jump to millions of years, which you haven't seen.
I've shown you the building of information that wasn't there before. I've shown you different chromosome numbers.
Which
I've
is
shown
not going
you,
to help a thing. Which is not going to help a thing as far as making it be something other than what it was ordered to be.
which is
Because
why I keep
we know you
asking
can
you,
genetically remove an eye from a fly, and within a few generations, it'll get its eye back.
what's the name of that study, by the way?
I don't know, some fruit fly study.
Hmm. Yeah, I'm gonna need more information than that.
Yeah, I'm sure it's secular information. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, but every time a creationist says something about a study, they're always lying about it.
Well,
That's
get
just
back
my
to me. And let me
experience.
know. Let me know if it's real or not.
I need the name of the study.
Ugh, as if you can't find it.
I mean, I'll try and look for it, but I couldn't find it just now. Uh,
Oh yeah, I'm sure they put that in the back way in the back of the file somewhere. Just like they file away all the dinosaur bones that are significant in the drawers.
like what?
I'm sure I there's no doubt in my mind that they're hiding stuff. Because if you get Mark Armitage that digs into a bone and finds soft tissue and blood cells and Philippodia and bone cells and everything, then you know they're hiding something.
No.
Yeah. I mean, it's
They,
because, and for one thing, they're not even looking in the right place because they believe stupidity.
if you
That's
were,
why they. That's why they never found it before. That's
if
why
there
they never
were,
found radiocarbon in dinosaur bones because they never looked because they believe stupidity.
if they were trying to hide it, they would just hide the soft tissue,
You
and
know they're hiding stuff. You know
there's
they're hiding.
radiocarbon and everything.
You know they're hiding. Of course, they don't. They refuse to radiocarbon date the soft tissue. They refused on air.
Right, because everything longer
Blah,
than
blah,
sixty
blah, blah, blah,
thousand
blah,
years, and they
blah.
have tested it. We have the dates for that, except they're inaccurate because anything over, realistically
I gotta
over.
be considerate to you because you're my first guest after Google fell. So I gotta be polite to you.
So the readings are just going to read 60,000, no matter what.
The readings are gonna read 60,000 what?
Years. So anything above like 50 or 60,000 years is going to always register as 60,000
Right. Right. So why do they find uh, carbon 14 in dinosaur bones?
because there's carbon 14 in everything. It's still
Yeah,
going to be there.
but that's how you determine the age of, especially if it's soft tissue.
Yeah, but that we can't measure it past 60,000 years. The sample is so small that the readings are all inaccurate.
Yeah, they're all inaccurate anyways, for that matter. Thanks for proving that your radiometric dating methods are inaccurate.
They're not inaccurate. It's the reading methods uh, are not able to read the tiny amount that's there.
Right, I understand.
So you can accurately measure it if there are larger amounts, but not if they're so tiny that the machine can't see it.
No, but no, that's the point. There are large amounts. That's the whole point. It
There
shouldn't
aren't.
be there. The same thing with diamonds. There's large amounts in diamonds too. It shouldn't be there.
No, because they I've seen the dating of this. They are all around 50, 60,000 years readings, which of course is a lot older than the young Earth. Um, so that basically means that the sample size is extremely small.
All right, I'm not trying to ignore you. I haven't been reading the chat. They got a chat out here. We got hello everybody in the chat. Redefined living, wild heart, confirmed autist. Oh, we got confirmed autist. That's my sock puppet friend. And this one guy and F417H
Not in the
clear from
YouTube
the
chat.
outside. All right, go ahead.
Um, what was I saying? Some of it. Yeah, the readings for the dinosaur bones and the soft tissues,
What's up, Wyler?
those are small sample sizes. If they were large, they would be like under 36,000 years.
I don't know, but they refused to do the test. Why do you think they would refuse to do the test? They were offered they offered to pay for the test, and they refused to do it.
It's kind of a
Why do you think
waste of
that?
time.
Why do you think that would be?
It's a waste of time.
No, not if they're going to pay for the test to be done.
Well, someone tested it, so does it matter?
Who tested it?
I've seen creationists put out the readings for those soft tissues. They carbon dated them. And of course, they're all between 36,000 and 60,000, which is generally what's considered inaccurate.
Right. Oh, okay. I see what you're saying. I see what you're saying. Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know. I have to check on that.
So only the most sensitive, the most expensive machines are going to be able to go up to like
I'm
50,000.
not sure if I believe it because I can't. I got to be skeptical of everything I hear because you know. Hello, Louisa Fine.
So I mean, the main thing again is just like how far can bone change? Just to stick with skeletons, how far can that go? Because we know we've observed new bones forming, and we've observed bones getting smaller and bones getting longer, stuff like that.
People with 6 fingers.
Yeah. Pigs with a new vertebra, so it's not even a deformity or anything. New vertebra and new ribs. And again, that's just old information. They already have the information for vertebra and for ribs. It's just modified to give one more set.
Right, so it doesn't change it from being a pig, though.
So that's why I'm asking, how far can that go?
Well, like I said, you can warp a frog quite a bit, but it's still a frog. And you can warp dogs quite a bit, and they're still dogs.
Yep.
And cats.
So if you warp a dinosaur,
okay, so let's talk about the kinds a little bit. You know, if you want to know the difference between kinds, that in order for it to be the same kind, it would have to be the same information. Just like humans are all the same information, it would have to be all the same information for it to be the same kind.
How do you determine that?
You just sequence the genome and look at it and compare it with whatever else you're comparing it with. And it's got to be for it to be the same kind, it's got to be all the same information because it's all copies of a copy of a copy.
How can you tell what kind a fossil is?
No, I'm not talking about fossils.
Yeah, well, they exist.
No, but I'm not talking. I'm talking about what you can compare as being the same kind of what's living today, anyway.
Well, every kind has differences, so.
No, humans are identical.
Chimpanzees are more similar to us than they are to orangutans.
Humans are more identical. I mean, humans are identical for all intents and purposes. Humans are identical. Now, if anything's not identical, it's a different kind.
Humans are not identical, though.
No, they are identical. It's the same information. It's different copies of the same information, different numbers of copies of the same information, and
Some
different expression.
humans have genes that other humans don't, though.
The what?
Some humans have genes that other humans don't. Chimps have more genes than we do.
Oh, it doesn't. It doesn't matter if you lose or if some have more or less. It doesn't matter. But it's the same information.
Does it matter that chimp information is closer to ours than to other
No,
apes?
it doesn't matter because they have different information that we don't have, and we have different information that they don't have.
So orangutan is a separate kind from chimp, which is a separate
So it's
kind
not
from
a copy.
gorilla, which is a separate kind from. You're running out
So
of
chimps
space
are not.
pretty quickly because you're saying that every species of fox is on the ark, every species of ape is on the ark, every species of monkey is on the ark. What
So,
is not on the ark?
so what I'm saying is that chimps are not copied from the same common ancestor as humans were copied from.
Based on your arbitrary
Based on
decision,
looking at the DNA evidence.
which DNA evidence?
The only DNA evidence that there is.
Yeah, which part specifically? You're just saying that they are
No,
different enough.
the whole thing.
You're just giving this arbitrary, they're different enough based
No,
on a
no,
percentage
they're different. They're
difference.
different. It's different information. It was
So,
attributed
what is your
it was
metric?
attributed to be as junk DNA, but it's not junk DNA because it has function, but it's different information that we don't have, and we have information that chimps don't have. We were not
Well,
copied from the same common ancestor. We are not copies of the ancestor of chimps.
as far as we can tell, we are.
No, I just
We
showed
have
you,
the
I just proved
same.
to you that we're not copied from the same copy.
You just said that they're different, and I asked based on what metric. So,
You're being a
is
troll
it a
now. You're being a
percentage?
troll. A copy has to be a copy, and chimps were not copy, are not exact copy
Neither
of the
is
same information
neither
as what
is
we
any
are.
human. You want to use the word exact in two different ways.
No, it's humans are the same information for all intents and purposes. Humans have the same information.
Hello,
They
Theophon
They are
Secretary.
copies of a copy of a copy of a copy of a copy. Chimps are copies of a copy of a copy of a different ancestor because it's different information. Don't you get it?
Mm-hmm.
Don't you understand it? It's
Yep.
not hard. It's not complicated. It's not hard to understand.
Yeah, it's not complicated to
You're being
understand
a
how
troll.
each
Okay, so you're
generation
being
is
a troll.
different.
You're holding on to your belief regardless of what the evidence is.
I don't have anything to hold on to. You, however,
Yes, you
do. You
do.
have the
Yes, you
Bible
do.
to
You
protect.
have your pitiful belief in evolution. That's what you have. That's the only thing you have, and you'll be disgraced forever because you believe a lie.
Why will I be disgraced because just for
Because you
something silly
believe a
like
lie.
that?
Be ashamed of the lie that you were promoting, that you believed, because it was in your face. Because on what is today, the 19th of September,
Oh, is that why creationists are the joke, though?
19th
Everyone
of
laughs at creationism. It's
September,
literally a
and I
joke.
showed to you, I proved to you that chimps were not copied from the same common
No,
ancestor
you
as
just
humans
said
were
they're
copied.
different, which is
You
nothing.
insisted on being thick-headed and insisting on believing in your fantasy that you can get vast amounts of programming that's not there.
We know that we can get small
Be
amounts of
something other
programming.
than what you were made to be.
Okay,
Other than
so we've observed small amounts of programming that was not there before. So
no,
that
it
can
has to
happen
be vast
multiple
amounts. It
times.
can't be insignificant amounts that you're
Small
going to
plus small plus small plus small
gain and
plus
lose
small
all
plus
the
small
time.
plus
It's going to
small
gain and
plus
lose all
small
the
plus
time.
small plus small plus
That's not
small
vast amounts of
equals
program
big.
orders to be different thing. We're talking about orders to be a different animal.
Which is why I keep asking you how different the skeleton can be.
Yeah, orders to be a different animal. We're different because the instructions are different.
Which
That's
can
what
be
makes us
changed.
different because the
You're,
instructions are
you're,
different. That's why we're different.
you can't incorporate new information, like you personally, because I've told you over and over that information can change, and that's a fact and it's observed.
What's already there can change,
Yep,
but
that's how it works.
copies of the same information. We got backup information. I already told you that the eye can be genetically removed and then it will come back in a few generations.
Yeah, and I don't know if I believe you or not.
I don't know if I believe anything you say either, because
I,
you're,
I can
you're
I can give you
control.
the study of everything I've said already. I have all of my citations right here.
Yeah, and what did you observe? Vast
Well,
amounts of written
we
instruction,
observe
vast
nude
amounts of
bones, new
programming that's not
shapes.
there. You observe vast amounts of programming that's not there being written.
We observe small amounts of programming being written. So guess what? If we add small to small to small,
You
we're gonna
observe
get big.
you observe changes from what's already there.
That is how
It's
it
not
works. Stop
that's not the
saying
same
that because
as
that's how it
writing
works.
instruction. It's not the same as writing a novel that's not there.
Yeah, that's not how it works.
Yeah, that is how it works. You're being
Each
trolled.
organism does not write a new novel of genome.
Well, that's what you need. That's what different animals have. Different
Nope,
animals have different instruction, vast amounts of instruction. Where did it come from? From mistakes?
it's not a
No.
mistake. It's called a mutation.
It is a mistake. You had admitted it, and I made you admit that
No,
it's a mistake.
no, it is. It's a
Yes,
copying
I
error.
made
That's not a
you admit that
mistake.
it's a mistake. It's a mistake. It's an error.
Nope, a copying error is not a mistake.
It's a mistake. It's an error, and
No,
they don't happen that
a
often anyway.
mistake, a mistake needs intent. So there's no intent there. It just didn't
It's an error.
copy exactly.
It's an error. It's a mistake, copy and mistake.
Doesn't matter.
It's a copy and error. It
Doesn't
does matter.
matter.
It
Guess
does
what?
matter because that's not going to write
It
billions
does
of
though.
bits of
It
programming
does. We
that's not there.
observed it.
It's not going to write billions of bits of programming that's not there.
It already does.
No, it doesn't.
Call it a
And
mistake if
you
you
didn't
want. You're
observe
wrong.
it. You imagine that it's going to
No.
morph
Observed. We
a
observed
monkey
it. You're
to
just
grow
in
wings and
denial.
fly away.
You deny what's in front of your face.
No,
Yeah.
no,
We
because what's
observed
in
it.
front of
We
my face
observed
is
new
not.
genes.
I don't see
We observed new
instructions
genes.
to morph a
We
monkey to
observe
fly
new
away.
genes. We observe new genes. So if we observe one new gene, you can get 2 new genes. You can get 100 new genes. You lost.
Yeah, and you have a big fantasy too.
No, you have the biggest fantasy of all time.
You have the biggest fantasy
You
of getting
literally read from a
infinite
storybook.
possibilities in limited time and space.
You literally believe in a fairy tale and a storybook.
No, that's what you believe.
No.
That's what you
I
believe. I believe the
I
facts
believe in
because
observed facts.
the
You believe in a
global
book
flood
full of
proves
magic and
belief in
tales.
evolution. The
You believe in a
global
book of
flood and the
myths.
sediment layers disprove your belief in evolution.
You believe in myths. I believe in observable facts.
No, you don't.
Yep.
You believe in fantasy
Not a
because the
single one of
global
these
flood
facts have you been
disproves
able
your
to reprove.
fantasy. The global flood buried your fantasy.
That is a fantasy. That's magic.
Global
Your
flood
god,
buried your
your
fantasy of
fairy
evolution.
god.
It's all there, buried by the same global flood that happened in 6 months.
Yeah, and we've disproven that over and over. It's the reason why most Christians don't believe you today, because the geologists who were Christians disproved their own theories that the flood happened,
You
because it's
imagine
so obvious to a trained expert,
what
which you
Louisa
are
said.
not.
Louisa says making anything takes know-how and will.
No,
God
it
is
doesn't.
a great artist, creator. How could something that doesn't care evolution make something intricate and beautiful?
Here's how: variation and selection.
Yeah, variation of what's already there is not going to write instruction that's not there.
We've already observed it, though. You
No,
can't disprove that.
no,
Yep.
no, because you
Yep.
need
Within kind, there
infinite
are new genes.
possibilities. You need infinite
Within kind, there are
possibilities
new
in
genes.
limited time and space, and you're not going to get written instruction, vast amounts of written instruction that's not there.
Stop
In
lying. We've already observed
any
this.
amount of time.
You're lying.
In
We've
any
observed it.
amount of
We've
time. You're not
observed
going to
it
get
in we've observed it in limited
going
time.
to get a single protein of 400 amino acid that's not there in
Yeah, you
any amount
can.
of
We've
time.
observed it happening multiple times in multiple
You
species.
haven't. No, you
Yes, we
haven't.
have.
Never
Yes, we have.
observed amino acid being formed by chance in 20 billion years because
Oh,
it
yes, we
fall
have. Actually, we have observed
amino
amino
acids
acids
fall
forming
apart
from natural.
faster
Yeah,
than they
that's just a
can
lie. Stop.
put themselves
No, no, no,
together.
no, 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 no. We have observed amino acids forming from natural circumstances,
That's not,
all
I'm
by
not even
all on their own,
what I'm
in a
talking
lab.
about. That's not even what I'm
That's
talking
what you
about. I'm
said.
talking about this significant sequence of a protein that has to be exactly what it is.
It doesn't have to be exactly what it is. There are actually, especially with most proteins, they have repeating sections, and you can actually delete some of the repetitions, and it'll be the same function.
Right, but it doesn't. But they got to be folded, though. They got to be folded, and in order to be folded, they got to be exactly what they are. Otherwise, they're going to be something different, like you said yourself.
And some of the, if it has a highly repetitious sequence, it can still fold the same if you take out some of the repetitions.
Yeah, but that would be more along the lines of intent.
No, you could
And
genes delete.
a snowflake doesn't have significant sequencing, Wild Heart.
So deletions occur in the genome naturally, all by themselves.
Yeah, but they have to be complementary. The mistakes have to be complementary, which is absurd to begin with.
No,
And
because you can have a mistake or an error or a mutation, whatever you want to say. You can have that and still live. And some of them are beneficial.
yeah, but not early on.
What does that mean? You're just saying that.
If you have it early on, you're not going to exist.
What does that mean? If you have it early on?
Mistake early on in in the formation of life, in your formation, if you have a mistake in the sequence early on, it's going to mess everything up down the line, and you won't be viable.
No, because
Yeah,
everything later on is already built on that system, and if
because
it's working, it's already working.
you don't even know what I'm talking about.
I do.
Mistakes are very rare, and they normally can happen, but once in a while, if they don't affect the viability, they do happen.
And some of them confer benefits.
Oh yeah, you believe in fantasy. Some of them can magically write vast amounts of programming that's not there. You believe in fantasy.
It's been observed. I don't know
Oh,
how many times I have to tell you
what
this.
happened? You said yourself it takes millions of years,
No,
so it's not observed.
it takes
So you're
millions of
told.
years for vast
So you're
changes,
told.
but we observe small changes. You cannot tell me where the limit of that is. How many small changes can accumulate? You just have this vague idea that at some point it's just going to be a house of cards that's going to fall
Well,
down.
think of it this way, Snake. If you change what's already there to write instruction that's not there, don't you think you're going to affect the instruction that is there?
A little bit.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
Sometimes it
So
affects it
it's
so
not
bad that the
magic.
creature
It's
just
not
dies
magical
immediately.
fantasy.
What?
It's not magical fantasy. Wildheart was saying that he was referring to intricate and beautiful. Oh, I was referring to instruction. Like my mind is set on instruction, direction.
So
That doesn't write itself. Never writes itself.
it does.
Yeah, if you believe in fantasy or miracles,
No, we just observe it.
you observe miracles. Okay.
No, you claim to observe miracles. We observe science.
You don't even know what you're saying.
I actually do this in the lab, unlike you. So, how did we get
No,
E. coli
no.
to new? How did we
Do
get E.
something
coli to have a new
intentionally,
gene?
that's intent.
How did we get E. coli to get a new gene?
I don't know. Was it by intent or was it by accident?
Neither.
Neither.
Yep. So, we put them in a selection filter.
Oh, that's by intent. Okay. Thanks.
Yeah, but guess what? Nature also has selection filters. So
Yeah,
we can
but
test
nature
different we can
doesn't
test
put it
different
into a
selection
specific
filters.
direction that you want it to go, though necessarily. That's the whole point. Is that randomness is randomness. It's never going to write instruction that's not there.
It does. So the
Your
instructions to
imagination.
digest citrate were not there, and then they mutated, and then those instructions were there. You have no argument against it.
For citrate.
What?
Instructions for citrate, you said?
Instructions to digest citrate.
To digest citrate. Did you know what you're trying to achieve
What?
before? Did you know beforehand what you were trying to achieve?
It wasn't genetic engineering.
What?
It was not genetic engineering. No one went in and engineered a protein and then put it into the cells. They developed it on their own.
Without you planning it.
Yeah, we just put them in citrate.
Okay, so that proves what?
It proves that the environment can change uh, the organism on a genetic level.
It can change what's already there.
Yep. It proves that we can take something
But that's not writing.
instructions.
That's
It
not
proves
writing
that we can
instruction.
take
That's not there.
instructions that are already there and change them so that they have a different function.
But it's not writing instruction. That's not there though.
It is, because it didn't have those instructions before.
Don't you see that you're appealing to infinite possibilities in a very, very limited amount of time and space?
Don't you see that that's a meaningless stock phrase that you keep saying every time you're
No,
stuck?
it's not meaningless.
It
It's
is
not meaningless
absolutely
because
meaningless.
you're
How is a
you're
lab
talking
how
about
is a
one
laboratory
chance
infinite time and
change that
space? How is the laboratory infinite time and
happen to
space?
be either plus or minus. It
How is
doesn't change. It doesn't change it from being what it is to begin with. And then you're appealing to those kinds of changes to accumulate, to all work together to direct it to be something other than what it already has directions to be.
they're already working together? So how is a laboratory infinite time and space?
No,
It's not. It's
you
limited.
only
It's a
got a
laboratory.
single small change. You only got a single small change. You didn't get infinite
Uh-huh.
possibilities.
Right. So are you saying that I can't count to 10 because I can only count to 1?
I'm saying the more changes that you have that are complementary are the more changes there are that are complementary, the more impossible it gets.
Not necessarily.
Yes, necessarily.
No, not necessarily.
Yeah.
So how is your biochemistry? How many like equations have you done in biochemistry? Do you know how much you can tweak one end and the equilibrium will shift to one end? And have you done that?
Yeah, but you're changing the subject though.
No, that's exactly what we're doing. Because
I'm talking
if you actually knew your biochemistry, you'd know that it can change. You can tinker with it a lot, and it will still function. And it can have different functions depending on how it's changed.
but I don't think you even know what I'm talking about because I'm talking about complementary changes. The bigger the number of complementary changes, the more absurdly impossible it is.
I know what you're saying, where the more complex something is, the harder it is to change it.
I'm talking about complexity. I'm talking about instruction.
hmm I know
I'm
exactly what you're trying to
talking
say.
about directed working mechanisms.
Uh-huh. So the more complex that is,
That's not complexity. It's direction. And you can't use directed things as evidence of no direction.
there is direction. It's called the selection pressure.
Which doesn't build an
Nope.
organism.
Selection does not build. Mutation
Doesn't
builds.
doesn't build an organism, and evolution supposedly builds an organism
Through the interaction of mutation and selection.
through your imagination.
Nope. Because we observe it building small parts, so it can build other parts.
So it builds small parts of what's already there. It doesn't write instruction, vast amounts of instruction that's not there in any amount of time.
Again, if it can write some instruction by itself, which you seem to be admitting at this point.
Okay, but the global flood shuts down your argument. The global flood buried all your evolution in a single 6 months.
What?
Your whole entire
So it was evolving and then it flooded?
belief of evolution was buried together in 6 months time.
If you believe a fairy tale and not the actual scientists.
Oh, that's what geology is. Geology is the result of the global flood. That's what geology is.
No,
And it
geology is the study of
buried
rocks, and they
evolution,
discredited your theory a long time ago.
belief in evolution right there in front of you. Your belief evolution is buried by
Again,
flood. It's buried right there in front of you.
Again, you seem to be flip-flopping
So all
between
of your
evolution
arguments,
is impossible and there's not enough time for it to happen.
all of your arguments about infinite possibility and limited time and space are absurdly impossible are wrong anyways because it was all buried by the global flood right there in front of you.
So I've demonstrated to you
And
that.
demonstrate anything. It's all buried there. It's all buried
Well,
in the.
you're right. I cited a demonstration that new instructions can be evolved by an organism. So a
Doesn't
small amount
doesn't
can
matter.
be added to another small amount.
Doesn't matter because it's all buried in the global flood right there in front of you.
So it was evolving until the flood happened?
No, what you imagined was evolution was actually contemporary living organisms that all lived at the same time in the same place, and they got buried by the same global flood. And your belief is
Oh. So if
absurd,
they're okay, so if they're in the same time at the same
absurd
place,
nation.
how come you never find them in the same layers, and how come each layer dates differently?
They were they're consecutive layers. They were buried in 6 months. The whole stack of sediment layers all over the world were buried in 6 months. They were all buried together. It doesn't
Based on
matter
your fairy tale book, not
where you
based on actual science.
find exactly what happened to them.
So the difference in the radioactivity between the layers,
Doesn't matter. That disproves radioactivity.
no, it
That
doesn't.
your
No. Radioactivity disproves your flood theory. So
proves your radioactive dating methods. That disproves it.
only if you just assume it.
Because it's a fact. The global flood is a fact of history because they're consecutive layers. They're consecutive water deposited sediments that were deposited in rapid succession, one on top of another, everywhere around the world, over 100 million cubic miles, with everything that was living on Earth at the time. Samples of them are in those layers.
So it
And
magically flooded and it magically got from nowhere.
so they're all water deposited sediment layers.
No, they're not, and you already admitted this. So
Except that marine life doesn't swim very well in volcanic flows, but that's the only exception.
So the amount of radioactive decay that has occurred in the lower layers, if that happened in the time frame that you're saying, the Earth would be on fire. Every living thing would have been radioactively roasted to death. And
It
that's a
doesn't
fact.
matter. It doesn't matter because
It does matter because you have
because
to
the
spend
history is
actual
what it is.
realism to
The
get your
history
magic.
the history is what it is.
Uh-huh. And you take your cues from a storybook.
No, I take it from
and
geology.
scientists take their cues from the natural world.
Geology. It's geology. It's right there in front of you.
Look up geology.
Yeah,
It
you
doesn't
look
agree
up,
with you.
you look up the volume of water deposited sediments and see if you can find it.
Why did geologists abandon catastrophism?
Because they were dumb.
But you're smarter?
Apparently. You guys make me think I'm smart.
Mm-hmm. That's called the Dunning-Kruger effect.
Yeah, you make me think I'm smart.
Mm-hmm.
Because of your idiotic.
That's called the Dunning-Kruger effect. You have
No.
learned a little bit about something, so you automatically assume that you are more confident in your conclusions. You are more professional or more competent than the actual professionals.
I'm confident because I know what the evidence is, and
No.
I didn't learn the evidence from secular scientists because they lie like a rug on the floor.
You learned everything from a storybook, and somehow you think that
No.
that's better than actual study of the natural world, and that's
the
Dunning-Kruger.
historical record does not tell me the volume of sediment, water deposited sediment layers there are around the world. Where did I get that
Where
information
did you go
from?
to school to learn how to
Where
study
did I
that?
get that information from? Not from a geologist. Well, actually, it was from a geologist, but I figured it out first. I got it from the evidence of the geology.
So they all just decided to be stupid.
They all just decide to believe your fantasy belief that you can get written instruction that's not there, poof, from thin air like magic.
That's what you believe. That it
No,
proved,
that's what you believe. That's
No,
what you
you
believe.
literally believe
You
that
believe.
animals and plants came poof from God.
Well, that's what the evidence shows, isn't it?
Nope.
It doesn't. The evidence doesn't show that things evolved because evolution doesn't exist, does it?
We've observed new instructions that were not there before.
It doesn't matter because all your fantasy was buried by the global flood right in front
I
of
know
you.
it doesn't matter because you'll just move the goalpost
No,
every time I meet it.
no, because no amount of your fantasy, wishful thinking is going to change the history of the global flood.
That's really fascinating projection.
I'm talking about real history. I'm talking about real genealogies. I'm talking about real calendars. I'm talking about 100 million cubic miles of water deposited
No,
sediments
you're
in
talking about the
with
Bible, which is there's nothing
fossils in
real in
them.
there.
No, don't put words in my mouth. Everywhere around the world, consecutive water deposited sediments with marine life and fossils everywhere around the world. 100 million cubic miles of it that didn't fall from the sky and didn't erode from a mountain somewhere.
So where are the humans and dinosaurs together?
Well, they were probably stashed thrown in the river or stashed away somewhere. I don't trust your object credit giving fantasy believers.
Oh, so how come creationists have never found this?
Well, they spend their time preaching the gospel, telling the truth like they're supposed to do.
Right, because they can't actually do it.
Because they're
If
excluded
they could
from
do it, you
science.
would. If you
They're
could
kicked
do it,
out
you
because
would, and you
they're kicked
can't.
out. Right. You're right. They're kicked out. They're kicked out like Mark Armitage was kicked out and not allowed to do science and
You
not
can do
allowed to
your own
correct,
science. You
not
can do
allowed
your own
to
science.
correct
You
the
have your
event,
own institutions. You
not
just
allowed to correct
swear you have
the
your own
object
institutions.
belief.
Hello, you have your own institutions, your own creation institutes. You can do your own science. It's just that your people they make those their employees sign an affidavit of faith saying that they will reject any and all evidence that goes against their story. That is not science.
That's history. It's actual history. But that's beside the
No,
point.
no, saying that you will reject all
That's
evidence if it
beside.
goes against your religion, that's not science.
No, it's actual history. It's actual. Of course, you can't go against actual history. It's actual history. It's confirmed by
No, you just assume it is, and then you just go with it.
archaeology and calendars and genealogies and historical records, all the records that we have.
There's not a single actual scientific institute that says you can never publish any evidence that goes against what we already think we know.
Yeah, but you do it.
Only religious nuts like you do it.
But you do it anyways, don't you?
No.
Yeah, because that your belief depends on it.
Nope.
And there's people that have said as much as that.
If
There's
you can
people that have
actually
actually said as much as
scientifically
that.
prove something, there's money in it for you. No one's gonna stop you.
No, but we're not after money anyways. We're after the
Yeah, you
truth.
are.
We're after the
That's why
truth.
Kent
And you,
Hovind
you
and
don't
Ken
want the
Ham
truth.
build their dumbass
You don't want
little
the truth
buildings.
doesn't pay. The truth doesn't pay because the majority of people don't want the truth, and you don't want the truth,
Actually,
obviously.
the truth does pay. That's why scientists get paid for it.
No, no, and no. People don't want the truth because the truth has ramifications. The truth means that we have a maker, and that only our maker can remake us. Nobody else can. That's what the truth is.
Uh,
That's
Wrong.
exactly what we teach, and
Nope.
that's what we're supposed to be doing.
Okay,
We're
then how come
supposed to be
most of the
telling
scientists believe in that maker?
everybody
Your whole
around the world that you have a maker, and that only your maker can remake you again. Nobody else can, and
so
not idol.
so
It's not idol worship. It's not magical matter that made you. Magical matter is not your maker. Your maker is the infinite potential, which is God.
I'm really glad you made that argument because it's one of the worst arguments and it shows how bad your reasoning is.
That's what the evidence shows. The evidence shows infinite potential, and that is the realm of God. That's not the realm of limited possibilities or limited time and space.
So the reason you're
Well,
absolutely
you're trolling.
100% wrong. Can I speak? You could not be more wrong.
Can't say
Most people, hello, most people who believe in evolution are Christians. They already accept that maker and his rules. So your
irrelevant.
logic, hey,
Totally
I'm
irrelevant.
I'm speaking.
Secular, totally
I'm
irrelevant.
speaking
Has
here.
nothing to
I'm
do.
still speaking. I'm still
Does
going.
not
And I'm going to
does
keep
not
going because you interrupted me.
pertain to the.
So, I don't know what's going on.
anything that we ever said.
And everything else. So, you say that the reason that they're teaching this is to get away from God, except most of them are Christians, so you're full of crap.
No, is that they don't know what to believe because they're being lied to, and they believe what the scientists lie to them and tell
They
them.
are the scientists. Most scientists are Christians.
Oh, most scientists are Christians.
Yep.
Since when?
Still
I know
is.
they used to be. They used to be all Christian. But what kind of Christian is going to kick out Mark Armitage? What kind of Christian is going to kick out all these people?
Kick out?
Yeah, so you must be trolling or something.
No. I can show you the poll. I have a citation for everything I say, and it's at my fingertips. Because I actually do my research.
I could show you that Christians are systematically eliminated from the educational system so that all you have
they're mostly Christians.
Slap each other on the back looking for aliens and want to send people to Mars.
They're not. They're all Christians. Almost all of them.
They're not all Christians. What do you mean
Most
they're all
Christians?
Christians?
Most of them are.
No.
Yeah. Do you want me to give you the citation? I will gladly send it to you.
They're all Christians. They all believe in God.
Research, the gold standard of statistics.
Tell me that most scientists are theists. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Most scientists are theists.
Yeah.
Are you sure about that?
Yeah, it's not true in physics, but it's true overall.
Like 90%. I thought it was more like 90% of the scientists are not theists.
In physics.
Well, physics is the
physicists are atheists, but most scientists overall are
theists. That has theists in it.
What?
Physics is the science that has theists in it.
No, physics is the one with the least theists in it.
Oh, there's theists in physics.
Not as many as in biology.
I was of the persuasion that a lot of physicists are theists, and that's the only science
less overall than most scientists.
The only science that there are theists in. That's what I understood. But I don't know. Maybe you can show me something. But that doesn't prove evolution, because evolution was buried by the flood.
It's Pew Research.
It's
the gold standard of statistics.
It's putrid research, is what it is. It's nonsense. People slapping each other on the back and stuff.
So you don't believe in statistics just because it sounds funny?
Well, you're still talking about Christians?
Yeah.
No, but that has nothing to do with evolution.
You said that the reason scientists stopped teaching catastrophism, the global flood, was because they wanted to deny God. But those were Christians, and they stayed Christian.
Back in the day. Not today.
They are still mostly Christian today.
That's a new one on me. And I don't believe it, but that's a new one on me. I mean, I know Mary Schweitzer is a professing Christian.
Uh-huh. And
she's with the group that refused to do radioactive dating on the samples.
And so, the samples have been dated.
Not those samples, not the soft tissue samples of Mary Schweitzer.
Okay. Do you think it would be less than?
See, you know what you're doing. You're making it so I can believe less and less of what you say. Less and less of what you say is believable.
Because soft tissue exists?
No, just the more that I talk to you, the more I doubt that what you're saying is valid or truthful.
I doubt that.
Well, I'm just saying.
You've already decided that you will never believe
observation.
it. You've already decided you will never believe it, no matter what.
No, I'm looking at the evidence. You're not looking at the evidence.
No, you started with the Bible.
No, I'm telling you what the evidence is, and the
The
evidence
only reason you
happens
believe
to
in the
agree with
Creator
the
is
Bible.
because of the Bible.
No, the evidence happens to agree with the Bible. Where the Bible, the goat herders knew more than your object credit giving scientists.
Except all of the experts disagree. So,
Yeah, your object credit givers disagree because they're idolaters. They believe in magical matter. That's why.
no, you believe in magical matter.
No, I don't.
Yeah. You
Oh,
believe God made it. You
I
believe
believe in the
God poofed
maker
it
of
into
matter,
existence. That is
and
magic.
I believe in the maker of matter and the infinite potential, which is able
Which
to
is magic.
make every living organism to reproduce after its kind. And you have to have infinite possibilities, infinite potential for that, because we can't even do that, and we have intelligence.
Okay. And so?
Right. Even if we tried, we can't do that. We can't even make a you know living organism.
So that means that God exists?
No, I'm just saying. It's in order to make every single living thing that there is on Earth, you have to have infinite wisdom, understanding, and power,
So you've made up.
ability, and knowledge.
So you just say just because you read it in a book somewhere.
No, I'm just saying what's required. You have to have infinite potential to make everything we see.
No.
Infinite power. Even energy requires infinite power because energy doesn't come from less and less energy. It comes from more and more energy.
Well,
And it
again,
doesn't come from an equal amount of energy either.
just speaking about evolution, you can just assume it was created, and we already know that it can change. We already know that it can add new genes, just naturally.
We already know it was buried by the global flood, your belief.
Evolution was not buried by a global flood.
Yes, it was.
Evolution is not a thing that can be buried. It is a
Evolution,
process that is observed today. And
evolution is imagination that was.
you, you use it to explain post-flood diversity, except that kind of super fast
No, I
evolution
don't.
does
No,
not
I don't.
exist.
No, I don't. Because everything after its kind is a copy of its kind.
That's still evolution.
No, it's not because it's a copy of a copy of a copy of
Yeah,
the
it
same
is.
information.
It's
It's a copy of
microevolution.
the same information, which proves what a kind is. Every kind is a copy of its original ancestor, and every different organism is a copy of a different original ancestor.
Yeah, so
Genetics.
except you can get differences within kind at the genetic level,
You can get
which you
differences
keep
in kinds
just being in
from a
denial
kind.
about. E. coli is still E. coli, but it has new genes that the original E. coli didn't have.
Okay, you can get differences in kind, but it's essentially the same information.
No, it's got new information that wasn't there before.
Okay, and you're sure that that information is going to stay there and cause it to grow wings and fly.
Not necessarily.
Okay,
And it would be different
case in
information that
point.
caused it to grow wings and fly.
You just proved my argument.
Nope. I have been proving mine the whole time.
Irrelevant.
You keep moving the
Your
goalposts.
changes are totally irrelevant. You're
You
totally irrelevant.
you
You
keep
just
moving the
admitted,
goalposts.
you just admitted,
You say
you
that it
just
can't
admitted,
create new information. Then I
you
show you it
just
can create new
admitted
information.
that your changes are totally irrelevant.
I told you.
You
You
just
told me that
admitted
it can't.
it. It's
Listen,
just
you told me that it can't do something. I told you it can. It can do it. And so you move the goalposts to, well, it's still not enough.
no, but you need vast amounts of instruction for it to be something other than what it is in order for it to evolve.
Uh-huh, which is why I keep asking you how many of these changes can accumulate, and you can just give me a vague if it gets if there's too many it can't do it.
It
Why?
doesn't
You can't
matter.
you can't actually describe anything in biology about it.
Evolution doesn't exist because you can't get the written instructions for it to exist.
You can though, because we
No.
observe within kind the same kind writing its own instructions, new instructions within kind.
Okay, you believe
So
in fantasy.
So then you have to move the goalposts.
Believe in
But every
magic.
time, and then I meet that, and then you revert back to the
And
original
because of
goalpost.
magic and more magic on top of magic, billions of times
I
magic,
know you believe in silly god magic,
billions
but
of
that's
magical
irrelevant.
occurrences in limited time and space. Yeah, that's what you believe. Fantasy, magic,
Uh,
lies,
I'm about
lies,
done here because you're just lying about every time
lies,
I correct you. You lie. I say that's not what I believe, and then you lie again about it
lies. You believe lies.
because you keep getting disproven. You just revert to the simplistic, lies.
No, and besides, it was all buried by the global flood anyway, so you're all wrong. But anyway, no matter, even if evolution had a mechanism, which it doesn't,
Listen, I'm gonna start arguing like you. That's
it was
disproven because
buried,
I said so.
it was buried by the global flood, not because I
No, the
said
global
so,
flood
because
was
what
buried by textbooks. The global flood was buried by textbooks.
the
If
evidence,
I just assume that I'm right, then I can just say, well, just you're just wrong because I'm right. That's all you're doing. You're just
no, because
declaring
the
the
evidence,
flood existed, therefore that disproves evolution. Yeah, well, you
because
can't
there's
prove the flood
evidence,
existed.
because there's evidence of the global flood. Geology is
There
the
is
result.
none.
It's
No.
the result of the global flood.
You keep
It
wanting to
buried,
go to geology. Geology disproves you.
it buried,
I'm a biologist.
it
You can't
buried
talk
your
about biology
fantasy.
because you're outclassed.
You are a fantasy believer. You are an object critic. You're an idolater. You believe in magical matter. That's what you
Keep
are.
talking to yourself. I like it. I
That's what
like it.
you are.
Yes,
You
you
are
are an
not,
idolater. You do believe in
you are
magic.
not
Yes, yes.
a
You
relevant,
idol
you
worship
are not a
Jesus.
relevant biologist.
Jesus is idolatry. You worship the magic of Jesus. You worship the magic of your God.
No, we're
And you
not talking
expect me to
about
take you
doctrine. If you want to,
seriously.
if you want to go there, if you want to talk about doctrine, we can do that. But that's not in the subject matter right now.
Yeah. So stop talking about the flood. You
No,
just assume the flood, therefore you're right. Yeah. If I just assume evolution, therefore I'm right.
I'm observing the evidence of the global flood.
You're
I'm
just
observing.
declaring it.
And that's what history says too. History said there was a global flood.
No.
Yes,
Nope.
yes.
Nope.
There is no history beyond the global flood.
There is no
Calendars
global
only
flood in history.
calendars go back to the time of the flood.
And past that.
Genealogies genealogies go back to Noah.
In your fantasy storybook.
No, with the DNA evidence.
The lineages go back to Morgoth in the Lord of the Rings or the Silmarillion.
No, Abraham was older than that. Abraham's older than Zeus.
Yeah, I'm talking about fantasy books.
Well, I'm
Just
talking
like the
about we
Bible.
are talking about the Sumerians. Abraham was a Sumerian from a Sumerian city called Ur, where they dug up an idol that was probably made by his father or somebody that his father knew.
Okay, and none of that changes the fact that we have observed cells
It's
create
history.
new information.
It's history. Yes, it does because it buried your fantasy of evolution.
This
The
is
global.
how deluded you are. I literally tell you this is
How?
possible, and you just go, well,
How?
but
How deluded?
my
How
thing, so your
deluded?
thing doesn't exist.
Am I the one reaching for
You're
the
the one
stars?
interrupting, so I'm not going
Infinite
to stop talking
possibilities.
until you stop interrupting me.
Am I reaching
I'm
for
not going to
infinite
stop talking until you
possibilities?
stop interrupting me.
Am I reaching?
Okay, so
I,
let me talk
am I
because
reaching for
I
infinite
need to finish what I was
possibilities?
saying, or else
Limited
I'm
time and
done here.
space.
So okay, are you going to let me speak?
No.
All right, bye. You're not going to let me speak, then I'm not going to stay around.
Go ahead, speak, speak. I'm kidding.
So,
I'm joking. I'm joking.
all right. I mean, yeah. Let's take it down a notch. So you accept. I don't know if you actually accept this, but because you move the goalpost every time. So I tell you that we've observed cells creating new instructions for themselves, and
A
you
single
just say,
change
wait a second, wait a second, wait a second, and you just say, no, that's impossible because of my storybook.
a single change is not instruction.
But you accept the single change?
In very, very rare occasions, and they're not complimentary. changes.
They're not complementary if we're looking at a single
So they're
word.
not going to write vast amounts of instruction that's not there.
It can write. Do you accept that it can write instruction that's not there?
No, it only alters what's already there.
If it alters the instructions, that's a new instructions.
Of what's already there.
Yep, that's exactly how evolution works. You change what's already there. That's what the word evolution means.
That's one digit change. It's not change of information or direction.
Okay, thanks for that word salad. So you can change the information. You can get new information. You can do it more than once.
Yeah. And even so, even if it was true what you're claiming, it was buried by the global flood anyway.
So I'm presenting facts to you, and you're just saying, but my book.
No. History. Geology.
History and geology all go back further than 6,000 years.
Which the book happens to agree with. Because it's history too.
No, that's why your book was abandoned in the sciences. It has
Well,
never been used.
that was your mistake. That was your mistake. If you want to be a scientist, I always say if you want to be a scientist, you have to read the Bible first. You have to know what the history is first. Otherwise, you're not going to understand that you have a maker. And if you don't understand that you have a maker, you're not going to understand anything in science.
Okay, well, I can say the same thing about any religion.
It's not a religion. It's truth. It's history.
Yeah, and it's a joke.
It's not a joke. It's
Is.
real.
That's why the Christian scientists abandoned it.
Your magical belief in evolution is a joke.
No,
it's a sick joke. It's a sick joke.
It's actually taken seriously, and creationism is ridiculed across the
because you're lying to kids. You're lying to kids, and you have no evidence.
Except the fact that we can predict new things and cure diseases.
Imagination.
And manipulate. You can't manipulate the system unless you know how it works.
That doesn't prove evolution. Just because you can observe and make medicine and do medicine, it doesn't prove evolution.
It does.
No, it doesn't.
Yes, it does. We're using an evolutionary model.
No, it doesn't.
Yeah, it does. So if we know how to cure a certain disease based on its genetic relationship to chimpanzees, and we know how to cure it in humans because we know how to cure it in chimpanzees because we use an evolutionary model, that's pretty good proof.
No, you know how to alternate genes. You're assuming that the genes came there by evolution. Just because you assume it came there by evolution doesn't mean it did.
Yep, we assume it, and then we find out things we didn't know because of that assumption, and that backs up the fact that assumption was accurate.
You don't learn what you should learn because you believe in evolution. You believe in a fantasy.
Whereas if you assume the Bible, you get magic and BS, and you can't predict any of the geology. Guess what? Geologists don't use old Earth or young Earth catastrophist models. They use old Earth models, real models, actual geology, and that's how they can find minerals. They can't find minerals based on your model because it's inaccurate.
It's word salad.
No, it's not. It's actual.
It's word salad.
Okay, so it's word salad that there's oil companies that use old Earth models. It's word salad that geologists work for oil companies and for mineral companies.
It doesn't matter. They were all deposited by the global flood.
It's not word salad anymore. So facts don't matter. It's just the global flood. That's about what I expected from this interaction.
No, the model works based on your assumption. It doesn't mean your assumptions are right.
That's exactly how science works. If your model works, that means it's an accurate representation of reality. The conclusion. It's an accurate representation of reality if it works.
No, it's assuming the conclusion.
So the model of the engine in the instruction book for engine maintenance, it works. It's accurate if it works. So if you look at your engine and it comports with the model, that means that the model is accurate, which means that the model comports with reality.
But not in geology. Not in geology, because you're assuming that there was different time periods.
So the way models work is just magically different because it deals with something that you don't like.
No, because it's you're grasping at straws. An engine is specific,
So
and
what? Yeah. So is
you're
geology.
grasping at straws as to the ages of the layers, and the ages of the layers are irrelevant anyways.
Yeah. Yeah. Particle
What's important
physicists are grasping at
What's
straws.
important is what the layers consist of, and that's what you go by. You go by what the layers consist of, and you find oil.
Based on an old
It
Earth model.
has nothing to do with assumed ages of the
Yeah, it
layers.
does. It absolutely does.
No, you're going by what the layers consist of,
And we know what they consist of because we know how
which has
often and how long it takes for them to shift and form.
which has nothing to do with the ages of the layers because they're
It
consecutive
does.
layers.
We know how
But they're
long it would take
consecutive
oil.
layers.
We know how long it would take oil to form, so we know what depth we'll find it at.
No, that's an assumption.
And an assumption that turns out to be accurate in reality. So that's why we say that it's true.
No, no, just because there's oil there doesn't mean that it took millions of years to make the oil.
It does.
And oil is a natural thing anyway to begin with. So it's a non sequitur anyway.
Um, no, it's geology is not a non sequitur.
No,
You can't accurately predict geology with your model.
your belief about it is. And they're consecutive layers. How do you get consecutive layers, water deposited sediment layers, without erosion taking place over a mile deep with marine fossils throughout and everything that was living on Earth at the time of the global flood buried in those layers? How do you get that?
We don't because erosion does happen.
Not between the layers in geology.
Yeah, it does. Right at the Grand Canyon,
No, it doesn't.
it eroded right through all the layers.
No, that was after the layers were deposited.
Uh
Now
huh.
you're being silly. That was
Yep.
after the layers were deposited. What are you talking about? I'm
Yep.
talking about
I'm talking about erosion.
between each layer that was made. I mean, it's not complicated, and you just don't want to understand or something. The erosion happened after the layers were deposited. What are you talking about?
Yeah, that
Yeah,
erosion
but
happens all the
I'm
time.
not talking about after the layers are deposited. I'm talking about while the layers were being deposited. There's no erosion between the water deposited layers, which were soft at the time, by the way.
There's such thing as a water gap, which creationists like to bring up as some kind of proof for the global flood, because it looks like a river cut through a mountain, which no flood could actually do. It would just you go over the mountain or barrel over the
That's
entire
just because
mountain.
there's huge amounts of waters behind, and the water just rushed through and cut the gorge.
That's
What's
impossible.
that got to do with?
So
What's that
so
got to
it's
do with
just
the deposition of the layers?
the wave is just traveling in like
What
a
does that have to
small
do?
column. No, it's going to be a
What does it
giant
have to do
wave.
with how the sediment layers were deposited?
You were asking me to show some kind of erosion that happens as the layers are getting made.
That's after.
No, that's during. That's how water gaps form.
No,
Yep,
the gap
go
was
look it
formed.
up.
The
It
gap was
forms
formed.
while the mountain is growing.
The sediment layer was deposited first, and then it eroded after the sediment layers were deposited.
It's been eroding the whole time.
Uh, you're out of your mind, or you're trolling.
That's how a water gap works.
No, but you have layers on both sides of the canyon that they connect to each other, and they were
Now
cut
you're
through.
flipping back to the canyon.
Well, it's the same thing.
No, it's not.
The Grand Canyon is a water gap too.
No, it's not.
It is.
No, it's not.
It was
It's
cut through the
it's a
same way.
canyon in a plateau. A water gap is cutting through a mountain.
Yeah. Well, are you talking about? I'm talking about consecutive sediment layers. I'm not talking about cutting through a mountain that was pushed up.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about, though.
No, I'm talking about consecutive layers. I'm talking
You're talking
about.
about erosion while layers are forming, so I gave you an
Oh,
example.
I'm talking
Then you
about
had
you.
to conflate, and
You're not
now
listening.
you're
You're not
flip
listening to what I'm
flopping.
saying. I'm talking about erosion between the sediment layers themselves. You don't seem to understand what I'm saying.
Horizontally?
Yeah, they're horizontal sediment layers. There's no erosion between the layers. They're all water deposited. That
There
means
is erosion between the layers.
there was no time between the deposition of sediment layers. They were
We
deposited
can.
in rapid succession.
There are rivers in the layers, in the strata, between layers, that are no longer rivers, and some
If
that
there
are
was
still
rivers there,
rivers.
they wouldn't be horizontal layers.
They still would be.
If
It's
they're
just they
horizontal
deposit
layers, there's
in.
no
It's just
erosion.
they got eroded where the river was, but not where the river
If
wasn't.
it's a
You
horizontal
understand?
layer, there was no river there. If it's a horizontal layer, there's no river there.
Except that we've discovered rivers between rock strata that are currently covered.
In the Grand Canyon, you can
They
look a mile
they
down.
dried up.
You can look a mile down. There's no river between the layers in the Grand Canyon. So there was a mile of deposition, which
I didn't say it was in the Grand
there
Canyon.
was no erosion. And if there was no erosion a mile down in the Grand Canyon, that's what the whole world is like that. Because the whole world consists of the same kind of sediment layers.
And yet we can see where the oceans and the rivers were that are now dried up and are now have strata on top of them.
You say they were oceans because they have marine life. They all have marine life in them.
Mm-hmm.
What do you mean, uh-huh?
No, we don't know that they're oceans because of marine life necessarily. We can tell where the shore was.
No, but that's not what
we
I'm
can see
talking
where
about.
the shore goes down. We can
Talking
see where
about
the
that.
water ended.
You're talking about a little area. I'm talking about the entire thing. I'm talking about
I'm
all of
talking
the.
about the entire thing too.
I'm talking about 100 million cubic miles of water deposited sediments everywhere around the world.
We can tell that there were reefs in the strata that are
You're
now
not.
buried in rock.
You're not listening to what I'm saying, or you don't understand, or you
I
don't
don't
know.
think you know what you're saying.
I do know what I'm saying. I'm giving you an example, which is the same thing everywhere around the world. There's over a mile deep of consecutive horizontal layers of water deposited sediments with marine life and examples of what was living at the time of those consecutive layers deposited in rapid succession were formed because they're buried in those layers.
And so we can tell where lakes, seas, and rivers were between rock strata. That's what you asked for. And now you're changing the subject again now that I've met that goalpost.
It has nothing to do with what I just said. That has nothing to do with what I just said.
I'm just responding directly to you. You said
No.
you said
You don't know what
define
I'm
me a
saying.
river between rock strata.
Either you don't know what I'm saying or you're just trolling.
You like to say that a lot.
Well, because you're not making sense. You're not making any sense. I'm talking about 100 million cubic miles and you're talking about a shoreline.
And so
The shoreline has nothing to do with 100 million cubic miles of water deposited sediment everywhere around the world.
I know that's why you moved the goalpost from what we were talking
You
about,
move,
rivers between rock strata, and you moved it to.
you're trying to move the goalpost.
I'm back where we were. You're trying to move it to something else.
The evidence is that there's nothing over a mile deep. There's nothing, no erosion, no nothing. Only a horizontal water deposited sediment with fossils in them, with marine life in them, everywhere around the world. What's this with a shoreline you're talking about? That's irrelevant.
Because you asked for erosion between rock strata, which water does.
Which is not the case.
Of between rock strata.
Which is not the case. The case is the horizontal layers over a mile deep everywhere around the world. That's what the case is.
And so?
And so
that doesn't make sense under a flood model.
It varies your belief in evolution because all your changes and your assumed morphology changes are in in those layers that were buried within 6 months of each
Observed
other.
morphology changes.
No, this is not observed because you don't know what's related to what because they're buried in the same sediment layers.
We do, because we could dig up a fossil elephant and you'd say that's a fossil elephant. So we can tell what is what based on its skeleton, and we can tell what is closely related based on it having basically the same skeleton.
Well, if the elephant was buried in those sediment layers, then they were buried by the global flood along with everything else.
Curiously, we never see dinosaurs and elephants together for some
It
reason, even though you say that they were in the same area.
doesn't matter because they were buried by the same global flood, one on top of the other without erosion between the layers.
It does
Everywhere
matter,
around,
because if they were buried in the same flood, they would be
every
found together.
everywhere around the world. Well, we can't trust you of what's been found together. I'm sorry. We don't trust you.
Yeah, and you won't do the work yourself because you don't have the expertise.
No, because we're kicked out of this
You
educational
can do
system.
it. You can do it.
We're kicked out of the educational
No, you're
system.
kicked out if you were hired to teach one thing and then you start teaching another thing.
No.
If you're hired
We're
to teach
hired,
evolution,
we're
you're hired to
hired,
teach science, and then you start
we're
preaching.
hired, we're hired to teach what the facts are, and we start teaching what the facts are, and we get kicked out.
No. You're hired to teach evolution, and then you interpret that as I'm going to teach them what I think are the facts, and not
Evolution
what I've
doesn't
been
exist.
hired to
Evolution
do.
is not a fact. Evolution is fantasy.
No one
The,
gets hired as a fact teacher. No one is a fact teacher. You're a
the
teacher
global
of a
flood
certain
values, we are
subject.
fact teachers. If you're not teaching a fact, you shouldn't be opening your mouth.
Yeah, but there's no fact teacher. There are math teachers. There are evolution teachers. There are biology teachers. There are physics teachers. There are no fact teachers.
Yes, they're fact teachers. You teach fact or you don't open your mouth.
No. You can teach a lot of things. You can teach philosophy. You can teach writing. So if you're hired to teach evolution, then if you don't teach evolution, yeah, you deserve to get fired.
No, you don't, because
Yeah, you
evolution
do, because you were hired to teach evolution. If you're not doing what you were hired to teach,
does that. You don't have a single shred of evidence for evolution. You have a single little tiny mutation. You say that all life is the result of this tiny mutation that you said exists.
nope.
Yes.
Nope. I
Yes.
said all life is a result of mutations, not a single mutation, like you
Infinite
just said.
possibilities in limited time and space.
Nope.
Magic.
Limited time and space.
Magic. You believe in magic, magical matter.
How many times do I have to correct you?
No, how many times do I have to correct you? You got one little change, and that's not what I need for evolution. I need vast amount of instruction that's not there.
Yeah, so I proved.
How long will it take you to get that into your head? If you copy a copy of copies, it's going to be a copy of what was there originally. You're not going to get extraneous information. You're not going to get instruction that's not there. And that's what we see in every single living organism that is a different living organism has instruction that no other animal has.
Yeah, you're so full of shit that we do
You're
those changes, but you can't admit it. You just can't admit it. We see it happen, but you can't admit that it happens more than
Don't swear
once.
on my channel. You'll be out of here.
All right. I mean, I'm going to say whatever I want.
Not on my channel. You can't swear.
I already did multiple times.
You want to go?
I'm about to go because you're just in denial.
No, you're being a troll.
No. I'm just giving you facts.